Hello there, very good morning to you on this Tuesday morning. Question for you, is the number 10 problem bigger than Sue Gray?
Officials are warning her departure won't resolve the systemic issues in number 10 as questions are growing over the Prime Minister's leadership.
Well, Whitehall sources claim it is a desperate attempt from the Prime Minister to reboot the government after months of scandal.
Elsewhere, the Tory leadership race prepares to whittle 4 candidates down to 3.
Kamala Harris is taken to task on immigration failings, America's influence over Israel and the cost of living crisis during a new interview overnight.
In a GBNews exclusive, White officers hesitate when dealing with ethnic minorities over fears they could be investigated on the grounds of racism. That's according to the Metropolitan Police Federation.
Reports of bombshell messages from the TV presenter Phillip Schofield to his colleague Holly Willoughby are revealed amid the ongoing feud between the two.
And a new report finds more than 20% of job candidates over the age of 50 fail to reveal their age on their CVs. So we're asking this morning, should you be allowed to hide it?
As a 32-year-old, I have no problem with that whatsoever. And in the sport, both Manchester City and the Premier League claim that they've won their ATP legal battle, but still the 115 charges loom for Manchester City. In cricket, England have a tough day fielding in 40-degree Pakistan. Second day of the first test has just got underway. And back to football, 3 players pull out of the England squad for this week, but no replacements are coming in.
Hello, good morning. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showers and some longer spells of rain, but there will be some sunshine on the cards. So to find out where, stay tuned for all the details.
Hello there. Just after 6 o'clock on this Tuesday morning, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast.
That age thing, we're going to be talking about that today and how discriminatory is the country on the terms of age. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so as well.
I think if you're good enough, then you're good enough. It doesn't matter what age, stage, colour, anything you are. But it appears that age is a big taboo, as Isabel says, severely quiet on this subject. Because look at this. What height are you today?
I'm on the maximum height of my chair.
Oh, yeah, I've got a big cushion today that appears. So there we go. That's going to be one of us.
I thought you were in, like, the Wimbledon umpire's chair today. This is very high up today.
Could well be. Top story this morning, Whitehall officials have warned Sue Gray's departure won't fix the systemic issues in number 10.
This is a prominent report in the Times newspaper today, where Whitehall sources are claiming that 3 months after the election, Labour's former Chief of Staff has cast doubts over Starmer's leadership, with many seeing this reshuffle as an attempt to reboot the government.
Another refresh to the system. Political parties will have to publicly justify their reasonings for appointing peers to the House of Lords. This is thought to be an attempt to reduce cronyism.
And it all comes as the Tory leadership race prepares to whittle 4 candidates down to 3 this afternoon.
Joining us now, political commentator Andy Williams. Andy, who would your money be on for those 3 Conservative candidates to make it through until tomorrow?
I think it's highly likely that we're going to lose Tom Tugendhat today. He seems to be the person who's been cut adrift after conference. And then, really, with those final 3, I think it could be incredibly tight, actually. I mean, Kemi Badenoch was obviously the favourite going into the contest. Then Robert Jenrick pulled ahead, and now it seems to be James Cleverly in the box seat because he had a really good conference. So, all to play for.
And then it becomes different. Just to say, if they were to win 3 to become 2, those 2, it's a different vote system that we've got then after that as to...
Well, then it goes to the membership.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a very, very different constituency.
And who does that favour?
Probably and typically in the last sort of 20 years or so, the most right-wing candidate. It looks like, and as I say, it's going to be really close, but it does look like Kemi Badenoch might be knocked out. Obviously, if she goes to the membership, I think she'd be a really, really strong favourite. But who knows? Because James Cleverly seems to have the momentum behind him. There's been a bit of a surge. He's had some quite significant backers. I think Mel Stride coming out in the Telegraph yesterday and throwing his weight behind him. So I think if I had to put my money on it now, probably James Cleverly, even though he's actually the most of those likely final 3, probably the most centrist candidate.
Interesting. Let's talk about Sue Gray, shall we? The Times have got a very prominent piece which is quoting Whitehall sources, and given her time in Whitehall, we assume these are her allies, coming out and saying that, you know, ousting a chief of staff by an out-of-control group of males who felt threatened by her is not a good way to lead. Is this Starmer's woman problem again?
I don't think that's real, to be honest with you. I think there has been huge rancour in Number 10. Starmer had to act and make a decision on Sue Gray because it was clearly causing problems. I think the reality is, you know, the way I see it is that they needed somebody highly political at the top of that operation, and Sue Gray might have been a superb civil servant and brilliant at unblocking things in Whitehall, but she didn't have that how to win friends and influence people aspect. She clearly was falling out with people. Now, it does take two to tango, and there may well have been rancour on the other side as well. I don't think it's a factor of a woman problem. I know there have been criticisms of that in the past.
They're quoting that one senior woman has been dissuaded from applying to be Starmer's new cabinet secretary because of the way that Sue Gray has been treated by the Prime Minister.
That's interesting. I mean, I think Sue Gray understands. I think she understood that she had to go. Clearly, it was not her decision. She was obviously brought in and told, look, we're going to have to make a change here. But she was becoming the story. And to be honest, less than 100 days in to the government, it wasn't going well. The operation wasn't working. I was speaking to someone who works in Number 10 about 10 days ago. He didn't think she'd last the year. The fact that she's gone already is really quite surprising.
So how much damage, if any, does this do Starmer?
I think he's acted quickly, and I think that's the right thing to do. If he'd let things continue with Sue Gray and with the dysfunction, because the reality is that there were two major problems with the Sue Gray Number 10 operation. One is that cabinet ministers, the vast majority of them, hadn't hit the ground running, weren't getting things done, weren't delivering as quickly as Labour had promised they would. But I think fundamentally a massive comms problem has been going on. We've seen Starmer not giving direct answers to direct questions. Things like on the Chagos Islands, for example, refused to rule out the Falklands and Gibraltar being given away. David Lammy's now clarified
that he's advised not to give those direct answers.
I think there's been a lack of a coherent message is the point, and Alistair Campbell was doing the rounds yesterday, saying he's, you know, not everyone's cup of tea, but saying what there is lacking is a narrative, something that says this is where the Labour government's going. It's felt really piecemeal, it's felt tactical, not strategic, and actually, as Chief of Staff, you have to work with the Director of Comms and with the Political Secretary in Number 10 to make sure that people understand where is this Labour government going?
It's so funny, isn't it? The return of the
is there an Alistair
Campbell
Campbell in today's Labour government? Is there an equivalent of an Alistair Campbell?
Well, there is a Director of Comms, which is...
why don't we know who he is?
It was just appointed yesterday, this new appointment.
So he's the new Director of CJ, James Lyons, who used to be at The Mirror, I think, very experienced political journalist. I think there's not an Alistair Campbell in that mould. There's not that kind of...
Was Sue Gray supposed to be that character?
No, she was supposed to be making sure that Number 10 was working. She was supposed to be a link person between making sure that Starmer's priorities were being communicated to members of the cabinet and being delivered on. And I think the problem was there was a confusion about what those priorities were. And everything I heard from people I spoke to completely tallied with the briefings in the papers, which were it was dysfunctional.
It's funny, isn't it? This demand to hear what Alistair Campbell thinks about what's going on at the moment, and almost this demand for that figure back in Downing Street goes to show how far we've come, because, of course, everybody turned away from his wielding of power and his bullish behaviour and the way he really, bullied a lot of the press at the time that he was in Downing Street. And now they're saying, well, actually, the first 100 days under Blair was so much more efficient and effective than the Starmer first 100 days.
Yeah.
Maybe they do want to have the return of that kind of character.
Yeah, I mean, say what you like about Alistair Campbell, but he's incredibly effective. Not everyone loved him, but he was very, very good at what he did. And I think Labour's lacking that person or those people in Number 10. I think the key thing is we shouldn't be talking about a reset this soon. We really, really shouldn't. And it feels like We've got a budget at the end of the month, and it feels like that's make or break. And we really shouldn't be in a position where it feels so fundamental. I mean, again, Campbell and others were saying yesterday, maybe we should have had a budget sooner. I think actually that is now, with hindsight, a strategic mistake not to do that earlier.
Well, I sit and think, such a major thing like a budget, only, 2 weeks away or so. Why don't we know anything about it? Why is there nothing being leaked? Why is there nothing being previewed in that? And that only makes me think this is going to be a bad budget.
Well, I think they've sort of laid the groundwork for it not being a particularly cheery budget, if I say, particularly for more wealthy people. They've talked about the burden falling on people with the broader shoulders. The problem is they've ruled out so many tax rises, there's not actually a great deal left on the table. And they're even looking now at rowing back, to some extent, the changes to non-dom. They're rowing back, they were talking about making changes to the way people in private equity are taxed. They might delay the introduction of VAT on private schools. So all of those things are reasonably small revenue-raising measures, but there's not much room for manoeuvre. So I think the truth is, 3 weeks out, they're still scrambling to decide what exactly is they're going to do, how Labour are going to fund the big spending commitments they've made.
They just need growth so very desperately, don't they? Thank you very much, Andy Williams. Appreciate your take this morning.
Come back and see us again in the next hour. Thank you, Andy. If you've had anything to say with what Andy has mentioned so far, let us know. Have your say with us this morning, and we'll try and reflect that. Now,
overnight, the US Vice President Kamala Harris was taken to task during an interview with CBS News' 60 Minutes.
She was quizzed over the failing immigration system.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem. And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
Well, she also refused to confirm Israel was an ally during the exchange.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Well, this comes as the former President Donald Trump spoke at an event in Florida and blamed US leadership for the October 7th attacks.
A lot of that has to do with the leadership of this country. This attack, the October 7th attack, would never have happened if I was president. I can tell you.
OK, let's talk to the deputy editor at The Spectator, Freddie Gray. Freddie, how do you think all of this shakes down this morning?
I think last night was finally the first interview in which Kamala Harris has been well grilled, and she burnt like a terrible piece of toast. It was awful to watch. She can only on the campaign trail. But Kamala Harris is at last being revealed. And I think to a lot of people who sort of, I don't want to sound pompous here, who believe in proper journalism and asking people difficult questions, I think it's a big relief.
Her campaign has taken this decision to do this media blitz, haven't they, this week? And I think the audience last night for her sit-down was estimated to be between 8 and 10 million. And she was on the most popular podcast with women over the weekend as well. And this is following on from a number of criticisms, particularly from Republicans and also those in the business community, that she wasn't doing enough front-facing sit-downs with journalists and people weren't getting a sense of what she was like. Do you suspect this is why she hasn't been doing it?
This is exactly, Isabel, this is exactly why she hasn't been doing it. The more people see of her, the less they seem to like. She did that Call Her Daddy podcast at the weekend, which is kind of popular feminist podcast. Yes, alternative media is a very important part of the political campaign now. Donald Trump's been doing a lot of alternative podcasts, more on the kind of bro end of the podcast spectrum. And Harris was more comfortable in the Call Her Daddy situation because they talked about, what it's like being a woman and all those things. And she's more comfortable in that because that is easier to talk about than having to talk about very difficult issues like how you're going to solve the Middle East, how you're going to fix immigration, how you're going to fix the economy. On all those subjects, she sounded vapid, bland, and incoherent.
Well, we are seeing more of her. Unfortunately, Freddie, we're not seeing more of you because somebody obviously hasn't paid the meter at home and got the lights on there, whatever. But that's a bit brighter. This
somebody doing that really set off the lights there. You're a bit dark.
Have I not paid the meter? Perhaps I haven't been paying.
We should really pay it for you. I just want to ask you quickly before we let you go. You know, you're sort of pulling apart some of the content of what Kamala Harris was saying there and calling it vapid. But, you know, what about the Trumpisms, the sound bites that he delivers, that October the 7th wouldn't have happened, that there'd be peace with Putin if he was in power? It's almost expected of him, isn't it? Is she being held to the same level of scrutiny as Donald Trump?
Yes. I mean, no, not yet, I would say, but I think she is now. Trump has the advantage of being the challenger in this race, and he can call back to his presidency. And the problem for the Harris campaign is that most Americans felt better off under Donald Trump. They also felt the world was safer under Donald Trump. That's not to say necessarily that Donald Trump was a great president. I'm not sure he was. But Americans, while they might not like him, when they think back more fondly about his presidency than they do about the Biden-Harris administration. And Harris is in this difficult position of trying to present herself as something new, but she is still the vice president, so she still is the representative of Biden. And it's interesting, every time she's grilled, she falls back on the Bidenism. For instance, on Israel and Iran, on Iran, she said, last week, what would you say to Iran about striking back at Israel? And she said, I have one word, don't, which is a sort of punchy answer, but it's also exactly what Joe Biden used to say, or does still say. So she is only really able to kind of repeat Bidenisms, and there weren't very many good Bidenisms, so she's running on pretty thin ground.
Dear, well, it's getting to crunch time, isn't it? Not many weeks left to go until the big day. For now, Freddie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Freddie.
I have to say, he's looking particularly tanned. Not Freddie, the Donald.
We'll see.
Did you not notice?
No.
It was. I mean, did anyone ever done a sort of expose on if it is sunbeds or if it's fake tan? Because
it's not a sunbed.
It's not natural.
It's just natural. It's some sort of orange awfulness that somebody has told them looks well on them, but how wrong they are. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom on this Tuesday morning. The Foreign Secretary has defended the decision to hand the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius while facing heckles from MPs. David Lammy said the deal does not affect the British sovereignty of overseas territories like the Falklands or Gibraltar, which are not up for negotiation.
4 children are in hospital after a school bus crash in Northern Ireland. A major incident was declared yesterday afternoon when a bus carrying 43 pupils overturned in a field in County Down. Police are investigating the cause of the crash.
A GP has been jailed over a string of indecent assaults against 7 female patients. This was in Berkshire. He's Dr. Stephen Cox. He's been sentenced to 22 years in prison at Reading Crown Court.
Right, stay with us. Still to come, Phillip Schofield has now accused Holly Willoughby, reportedly, of failing to support
him. It's not reportedly, it is.
In the wake
it's
of
an
his
interview
affair.
in the newspapers. An interview which he has given, so it's not reportedly. He has done it, yeah.
OK, as in it's reported that in the paper that he did.
It's like allegedly and reportedly and all sorts of ridiculous. It's a fact. After this.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday. National Trust Director General has said something rather curious. She's admitted that 70% of the charity's staff are Union Jack-hating progressive activists. Yes, this was speaking at a Labour Party fringe event. The boss of the charity, Hilary McGrady, acknowledged that there was a gap between her staff's views and the views held by the wider public. So was she being honest? Joining me now to discuss this is historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadel-Mancu, who I believe is with me. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Can this be true?
The founders of the National Trust and later figures involved in it, like my hero James Lees Milne, were really motivated by love of nation. But I think that love of nation in the Trust has become actively, national self-loathing. And that's really the state of modern Britain. And with the Trust, I mean, what we've done is we've actually entrusted our national heritage to those people who actually actively despise our national heritage, and it's utter madness.
Have these people wanted to take over charities like the National Trust for their political ends, or is it just something that happens? Is it just the type of people who work in charities?
This has been part of the long march through the institutions, that people need to understand that Britain is now a post-revolutionary society. So the buildings that house our institutions look the same, but the people who now run them bear no comparison to the generations who lovingly built and ran them. They are cuckoos in the nest, and we need to understand that. And of course, once you realize that, of course, that explains completely why, the National Trust and others have crudely tried to denigrate our national heroes and link them and their houses to colonialism and slavery, as they ludicrously tried to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, reported in all the newspapers today is former This Morning presenter Phillip Schofield says that his former co-host Holly Willoughby failed to support him after his illicit affair with a young lad at ITV.
It adds Schofield accused Holly of bringing him down before he was axed from the show.
Joining us now, Showbiz reporter Stephanie Tetchy with her take on this. Why is he doing all this, Stephanie? Why can he not just accept he's out the door?
Well, Eamonn and Isabel, since last week, since the airing of Castaway, Phillip Schofield has now been given a platform to rebuild his reputation. Instead of reflecting on his mistakes, which he has done in some sense, he's also using it to get his own back at his former ITV colleagues. Look, Phillip Schofield and Holly Willoughby, they were once the golden TV couple on ITV. That came to an end last year due to the scandal of him having an affair with a younger male colleague. There was also the bits about his brother going to prison, which Holly wasn't aware of, apparently. So now...
We should say his brother was in prison. His brother is a convicted paedophile.
Convicted paedophile, that's correct. So he's now using his platform to actually say, my career ended unfairly, and Holly was a part of that. You see, viewers of This Morning really believed in their chemistry, and when he was on his way out, he was really depending on Holly to act like everything was still okay, and clearly she didn't want to play ball, which is why now he's getting his own back. For the Mirror to say that they've seen these WhatsApp messages, I'm sorry, they're very personal messages, and they can have only come from one source, and that is Phillip Schofield.
And what do they say? Give us an
They
insight.
said that basically he said to her, you've brought me down, because this was the day before his axe was made public. He said, I don't believe my TV sister has done that to me. So he feels like she was quite complicit with ITV executives in his downfall, which obviously there's always two sides to a story. Holly's been quite quiet about this so far, but Phillip feels now is his time to air what he needs to say.
I suppose you could argue that Holly lost her career over all of this as well, and she had every right to feel aggrieved.
Yeah.
Well, her career's never been stronger.
Well, she's not on This Morning.
She's not on This Morning
because she's on Netflix and she's on other stations. this morning is a daytime TV programme. She doesn't need This Morning.
Well, she did at the time. She was very much the golden girl of ITV. And because Phillip Schofield's career became tainted, she was taking Holly with her. So she had to protect what was left of her career. And I think for Phillip Schofield, they were very much in it together, and he saw a different side of Holly,
it was very much
which he's portraying to the newspapers
very much a false relationship, really.
Why would you say it's a false relationship?
Because look at the way it ended.
Well,
if this was your friend, you would come out and you would say, look, something bad has happened here and I don't agree with it and whatever. But she said nothing, absolutely nothing.
But,
she was protecting herself throughout this.
Yeah, but Eamonn, there's so many different sides to this story. There was the illicit affair.
I know one part of it.
I know you are. There is the illicit affair he had with the younger male colleague, which she says she wasn't aware of. There was the allegation against his brother. Apparently, ITV said they weren't aware of the extent of the trial to that. So there's two scandalous things here. How do you deal with that when your career is also on the line? There has to be a separation.
Well,
at some point.
ITV are obviously lying about a lot of situations, and there's executives who don't seem to appear here. This faceless person here, Emma Gormley, she controls daytime TV, so she's now she fires the bullets for Dame what's-her-name, who runs ITV, and Kevin Lygo, but you don't hear anything from those two top bosses in all of this.
What I don't like about this is because Phillip Schofield was very happy to play ball once he was still in This Morning, but now he's come out, he's labelled them as the three beep of showbiz. So at the time, why didn't he expose them now? It's only now that his career's gone down the drain, he wants to name and shame.
Phillip clearly wants to resurrect his reputation in some way. How do you gauge the public's reception to that? Because I read a few of the comments under numerous of the articles that were out following his Castaway show last week, and most people seem to be pretty closed to him coming back. They weren't very... They said he seemed bitter and all of those things. What do you think is the sort of mood?
I think, you know, he's had his 15 minutes of fame with Castaway now. I think he should have gone down the route where he was more remorseful and more reflective about his own wrongdoing. At the moment, he's trying to do the blame game, and I think that's not going well with the public. And I think if you want to resurrect your career, he now has a lot of TV enemies who is going to make him hard to be that wholesome, lovable figure he once was. But I think for Phillip Schofield, it's gone beyond that. I see a man who doesn't care right now, who wants to actually say, this is what actually happened with the end of my career, and I'm going to sing and shout about it. But I think the public are not forgetting what he's done wrong, which was that affair.
Well, there we go. I have a feeling this story is going to rumble on and on, isn't it?
It is. This is just the beginning.
Three papers claiming to have an exclusive on it today. Three of the tabloids.
I'm sure it's all coming from Phillip Schofield.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
Here's the weather update on this Tuesday morning. Honor Criswick.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with showers and some longer spells of rain, but if you manage to avoid the showers in the southeast, it will feel warm where you catch the sunshine. So plenty of showers bubbling up across parts of England and Wales. These could be heavy at times with the risk of thunder too. Some longer spells of rain across northern parts of England, across the Scottish borders too. This once again could also be heavy, and some fairly strong winds amongst the showers too, and some stronger winds moving into parts of northern Scotland too, and that's just going to take a bit of a kick off the temperatures too. But as I say, where you catch the sunshine across the southeast, and if you manage to avoid the showers, it will be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. Still into the evening, we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain. Still a chance they could be heavy, perhaps seeing even some sleet and snow fall across the Scottish Highlands, and still those blustery winds as well moving in across parts of Scotland too. Cloudy once again with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland, and elsewhere still plenty of showers continuing into the evening. Still once again could be heavy, still may even hear the odd rumble of thunder. Those showers are going to stick around into the evening, perhaps progressing into longer spells of rain across the southeast, so quite a damp start possible here. And still with those outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland too. Still could be heavy, perhaps still continuing to see that sleet and snow across the Highlands. So generally a cold night, particularly in the north and especially in that brisk wind too. But across the south, generally a mild night on offer for towns and cities. Heading into the middle part of the week, still a fairly unsettled day, still with those longer spells of rain in parts of the northeast. Fair amount of cloud across England and Wales, and still continuing to see those showers bubble up into the afternoon. Once again, a risk of some heavy thundery downpours too, and plenty of strong winds across the country too, which is going to make it feel a little bit chillier. That's it from me. Bye for now.
Woo! A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Just 3 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize this year so far. It is an incredible
£36,000. Here's how it could be all yours.
On demand. Good luck.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Dumfries and Galloway, the A710 is closed in both directions south of Dumfries between Maxwell Town and Cargan because of an accident. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is closed each way between Sywell and Hannington along the stretch between Northampton and Kettering after an accident yesterday afternoon. In Bedfordshire, the A421 remains closed at Marston Mortain because of flooding. Diversions often back on by the slip roads at Beancroft Road. In Gloucestershire, the A417 is closed westbound from the Air Balloon roundabout to the A46 towards the M5 in Gloucester because of a spillage. In Carmarthenshire, the A48 is closed eastbound from Carmarthen to Llanderog after an accident, and train services aren't running northbound from Havant to Guildford because of electrical supply problems.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Founded in 1990 in Knightsbridge in London, the Beverly Hills Bakery offers some of the finest American baked goods in the United Kingdom. Beverly Hills Bakery has delivered gifts to all the UK Prime Ministers of the last 20 years, with I think the exception of Sir Keir Starmer so far, and provided gifts for the royal family and for royal births. As we near the 35th anniversary of the bakery, I'm joined by the owner and head pastry chef, Rosa de Souza, and Manuel de Souza, who is the director of the Beverly Hills Bakery. How marvellous to see you both. Welcome to GB News.
Thank you for inviting us.
So, why has this formula worked? Why did London need a Beverly Hills Bakery?
What we do is we're a bakery, but underlying it's actually a gifting experience.
Right.
So this is an alternative to flowers. So in terms of concept, that has maintained its originality despite going on for 35 years. And in fact, what I do is I often ask myself, why is it going strong? To remind myself to focus on those things that we need to focus on.
So instead of sending a bunch of flowers, you send a beautiful box of cakes like that, or confection like that, complete with bunnies and so on.
Exactly. So you have the concept on the one hand, but you also need the quality of product that goes inside. And I think that's where Beverly Hills Bakery has got a great product.
And it's where Rosa comes in, isn't it?
Yes.
So when did you start to bake? Did you start to bake domestically in your home, and did it spread from there?
We started from home, my mother's baking, where we didn't have all the stoves and things like that. We baked on the charcoal, like the grease.
Yes.
And we started baking. I learned from my mother the baking.
GB News, the People's Channel.
So Manchester City are being, they're being ruled on by the Premier League as to what rules they may or may not have broken. Let's go to Paul Coyte, and he'll try and make sense of all of this.
I'll try and make some sort of sense of it. It's because Manchester City are probably saying the Premier League are being ruled on. The Premier League are saying that Manchester City are being ruled on. So the Premier League brought in tougher regulations in February. Now, this is to block clubs bypassing financial controls by earning sponsorship money from a company with the same owners. We've spoken about this before, or selling players cheaply to teams that are in their group or their same company. Now, Manchester City were saying that these rules are illegal and then took the Premier League to arbitration over this. So they launched this legal challenge, and it's over something called ATP, which is Associated Party Transaction Rules. So The Premier League say they or the Man City say that the Premier League breached UK competition law. To cut a very long story short, there were two things that were found in favour of Manchester City. Now, it was arbitration panel. They published a 175-page document yesterday. I got lost after about page 3, but I've managed to get through the whole thing. City had some complaints upheld. Two aspects of ATP they say were unlawful. The Premier League say the tribunal rejected most of City's challenges. So it's a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The Premier League is saying, well, we were vindicated in most of this, whereas Manchester City were saying the Premier League were guilty. So it gets very confusing, and also then involves loans that are actually made from the actual club for buying players to actually from the owners, and they're now saying that that will affect the future, which it hadn't done before. So anyway, it does get extremely complicated. But I tell you what it doesn't affect, and that's the 115 charges that are still against Manchester City.
Yeah.
So we're still waiting for that.
Which could
that's
involve
the big
them
one.
being stripped of a title or
Exactly. That's the big one. So that won't be out until probably early next year.
Here, good news. I see that Sue Barker's Question of Sport is hitting the road on a tour around the country.
Yeah, I saw that as well, but the thing is, they've already done that. They've already done the tour before. This is when it was on TV, because obviously the TV show, when Paddy McGuinness took over it wasn't the same, was it?
Well, it's Phil Tufnell and Matt Dawson,
and they were the last captains when they ended it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so they're going to be going on the road.
Very good.
A little cricket first test in Multan, which is known as the City of the Saints, by the way. Just in case you didn't know, inexperienced bowlers. Dry batters pitch, 38 to 40 degrees heat. It's a nightmare to play cricket, really, and is it any wonder that England struggle over there? They did win 3-0 2 years ago. Pakistan 328 for 4, so very difficult. That's just standing in the field, hours and hours in that heat.
Yeah.
Very, very tough.
Now, tell us about a man called Martin Disney from Newcastle.
Right, Martin Disney, a 44-year-old Martin, and a Leicester Tigers fan, so a rugby fan, and he's gone up with his friends to see the game against the Newcastle Falcons. So what they're doing is going up there on a stag weekend. So I thought it'd be nice to actually go along and see it. Will we see Martin there? Martin, there's Martin dressed as the Princess Jasmine with his 12 friends. Now, this is a running race.
The one in blue.
There he is on the right. Now, that's his best man who's running alongside him, and then he decides, for fun, I'll tackle him. Now he's like run away going, just for a bit of fun. That's Sam Myring, the best man, who's tackled him. But unfortunately, it's knocked Martin out cold, completely cold, because it's a 4G pitch. Now, watch this. He goes to the tackle. He's got to run the whole race. They're dressed like that. Let's knock him over. Hey! But, oh my goodness, he's out cold.
Oh, no.
So then, I know, the thing there, he looks lovely, though, doesn't he? Doesn't he look lovely?
I see they're playing on the Disney theme there.
Well, maybe. I don't know. And this is him before the game. He'd had a few drinks as well. So then the report came out from Newcastle Falcons, because there were a lot of worried fans, saying Newcastle Falcons are glad to report the Leicester supporter who received medical attention during today's game has been given the all clear and released from hospital. So he actually had to go to hospital. He was out cold, and then decided, they said, just go back to your hotel room. He was seen that night on the beers, and he was absolutely fine, still looking as beautiful as Princess Jasmine as he was when he ran the pitch.
There we go.
Rugby boys.
But you know what? The best man who tackled him, he's got
a very angry bride
You know
to
what?
deal
And
with.
you know what the speech is going to be about now, don't you, on Sunday?
Yeah, true.
Well, thank you very much indeed. We will take a break there. Still to come, is Britain the illegal migrant capital of Europe? You make up your mind after this.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're talking catchphrases and jingles because, of course, instantly recognisable and sometimes a little annoying in the case of the Go Compare one, perhaps. An iconic advertising jingle can stay in your head all day and sometimes stand the test of time. Sound expert and music designer for some of the world's most renowned companies, Michael Boumendil, joins us now. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us. First of all, what is the secret ingredient, the secret recipe for a hit jingle that stands the test of time over the decades?
Well, I have to say that secret 100 years ago is not the secret today, because today all the brands are using music. So the first secret is to stand out, is to make something different, to do something interesting. The other thing I believe is to do something that is true to the brand, that is talking to you. You know, it's not only about the memorability, but it's about telling something about the brand. You know, when I hear you, your voice, your tone of voice says not only who you are, I can recognize your voice, but it says a lot about your mood, your personality. So the other reason why we make successful jingles is because they're catchy, because they're different, but also because they say something to us that is interesting, and finally keeping this link between the brand and the customers.
Michael, tell us about your involvement in the new Maybelline jingle. This makes me, I mean, I haven't heard it, but it makes me a little bit sad because I was an avid Maybelline concealer user for many years. Other brands are available, but the jingle was the main reason why I got bought into it.
You don't have to be sad, because we kept most of the legacy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Looking through the newspapers this morning, we do that in the company of Claire Muldoon and Alex Armstrong. Very nice to see both of you.
And you too.
Good to be here. We're going to start, Claire, Lord Alli, the Labour Party donor, the guy who buys Keir Starmer's suits.
Yeah. Now, we have heard so much about this Lord, who has been invested in the House of Lords for a good number of years, but he is now made front page, centre page, and indeed the inner pages of practically every single newspaper we have in this country. And why? Because he's been funding, basically, the way our Prime Minister walks, talks, eats, sleeps, everything. And on top of that is £2,000 glasses. I mean, come on. They must be really special glasses. However, there's been a new book. Tim Ross and Rachel Wearmouth have just outlined a new book, and they've said that Lord Alli was actually brought in by Sue Gray. So there's lots of, oh, really, it's almost as if things are starting to fall into place now in terms of staffing quality, and how they're getting the passes into Downing Street. You will hear people explain the virtues of Lord Alli, donors, and we hear that donors don't want anything other than the best for the party. I would say this one's particularly different. This one had power, Lord Alli had influence, and he had a free pass into Downing Street. Sue Gray is alleged now to have brought him in to help the party win the election. And I would ask the electorate, if there are any of them viewing at the moment, why did you vote, and do you actually have buyer's remorse?
Can I just add to that story, because it's really important. There's revelations today that not only did they bring him in to help win the election, but he was there to help write the first 100-day timetable for Labour's policy agenda, which to me is cash for access, which is cronyism. And, you know, this is a party and a Prime Minister that stood on a platform of morality and probity and has become anything but that.
Well, we're past the 100-day mark now and Sue Gray's out. Do you think that was part of the plan?
I don't think that was part of Sue Gray's plan.
I don't think it was either.
No.
But, Alex, the story that you have taken from the Times is that they're saying that the crisis in Number 10, getting rid of Sue Gray, isn't just going to solve the problem here.
No, absolutely not. So what the interesting dynamic in Number 10 at the moment is that Sue Gray packed the sort of underlevels beneath the other spads, such as the new Chief of Staff, I forget his name for a second.
James Lees?
No, not James Lee's.
Morgan McSweeney.
Morgan McSweeney, thank you. They're Sue Gray supporters, and they're a bunch of her friends. And so you're seeing in the press now briefings against Morgan McSweeney yesterday. So you're seeing now that Sue Gray's been sacked, her people are upset. There was this, accusation by Rosie Duffield not that long ago that the lads were in charge, and it now seems like the lads have taken out Sue Gray, and Sue Gray's people underneath her are now saying, actually, I don't want anything to do with the Cabinet Office because it's a toxic masculine environment. So we're seeing, actually, the Spads briefing and leaking against each other, which is a complete lack of leadership by Keir Starmer.
Lack of control.
Where is he?
Her.
This is his job to go, you guys are a mess, get yourselves together or I'm sacking a lot of you. That's where we need leadership.
Part of what people did on July the 4th, on election day, when they voted for change, whether they were voting for Labour for the first time or not, was just to stop this psychodrama of number 10 that we saw for the latter years of the Conservative government. Irrespective of all the cronyism and the Lord Alli stuff, it's the infighting. Is it just impossible to govern anymore because of the way the press works, because of the way that social media works, because everything's so divided? Could anyone survive? It just makes me wonder, because I honestly thought Keir Starmer, of all people, would be the sort of Mr. Boring, sensible, calm, fair. And he doesn't seem to be able to do it.
Well, I never actually thought that. But on reflection now, I'm thinking that number 10 Downing Street and indeed number 11 is just one big, massive chessboard. It is just people moving around, trying to calculate the next move. They are there, they're elected by the public to govern the country, to run the country in our best interests. At the moment, they're governing it in their best interests.
What we're seeing here, though, is a game being played by civil servants and special advisors, not specifically politicians, funnily enough. This is coming from unelected people, and this goes back to things that a lot of politicians have been saying for a long time. We've got a crisis in our civil service. They've become too powerful, and we need to start roping in that power. And all these spads that are brought in, there's such a lack of transparency and accountability. You're basically electing them with the government without there being any transparency as to who they are.
I don't think there's enough independent thinking in the civil service, especially at the Home Office and all the offices directly affecting the government at the moment. They are indeed too powerful. We look across the pond, we see that Joe Biden had led America for how many years? And yet we're now seeing, well, who was actually in charge of America? I'm sorry, I think it's the same here. And it has to stop.
Yeah, I agree.
Shall we talk about ME and these urgent calls for action to prevent further deaths? This is from a coroner, and it's the lead for the Times, and they've been sort of really leading this whole sort of campaign, haven't they?
They are, and I think it dovetails right straight into what Starmer is trying to do before Christmas and rush in the legalised assisted dying bill. This coroner has called for urgent action to prevent more ME deaths. There's not just ME deaths, but this is one very tragic story. This is not going to stop any other deaths from happening because they explain it really well. The NHS, there is no joined-up thinking to aftercare, there is no palliative care, and there's actually no education. They're not listening to the people who know ME the best. And their sufferers of ME, their families, the charities that try to help to support them. There is no one listening. Life is cheap and no one really actually cares.
But Claire,
and that is the crux of the matter.
When we all sit and talk about the funding of the NHS, however awful and unfortunate these deaths from ME are, whatever ME is, it was known as the yuppie flu. Really, are we not saying, look, wake up, everybody. The NHS cannot deal with another high-profile disease or condition. It can't afford to look after ME sufferers.
Yeah, I get that. I really do. But I think this is actually shining a light on end-of-life care. It really is. And I think that is the key here. And I think, as I said, it dovetails right into what Starmer is trying to do and bring in legal assisted dying, which I am so not for. I think it's really a slippery slope. We have to look at Canada and the Netherlands. Huge red flags. Life is cheap, I'm afraid, and we can see that now.
Alex, this story broke yesterday. We're talking about illegal immigrants in Britain. It's at at a pretty frightening level, is it not?
Yeah, so this is a study that Oxford University conducted, and they found that the data from 2017, so let's bear in mind this is a few years old, this data, that there is 745,000 illegal immigrants living in the country. That makes one in 100 people an illegal migrant. It's quite a shocking statistic.
So where are these people? Are they, I mean, are they in our restaurants? Are they in our shops? Are they working away in this country?
That seems to be the case. That seems to be the case. We don't act, well, the scary part about this is we don't really know the extent of it. And because this data only goes to 2017, and of course the migrant crisis only accelerated from then, God knows what that number is today. And I think it's a real shocking statistic to come out. And of course, we're only getting this data constantly delayed. And I think it shows the crisis that this country is under. And we're talking about the NHS being under pressure. We're talking about public services being under pressure. Well, A&E waiting rooms are full because people who are illegal immigrants who might need to get care will only be able to go to places like A&E. And so we've got to start having really sensible discussion in this country about how we tackle this issue.
What's happening in the Middle East?
It is, yeah.
The displacement of people
Yeah.
over globally is going to affect us all even more.
Well, does that not mean we've then got to get tougher? We've got to put up the barriers and say, all very unfortunate what's happening in your country, but you ain't coming into ours.
I absolutely agree with that, 110%. Well said. I do agree
No,
with
I'm
that.
not. I'm only saying, is that one of the possibilities?
I definitely think that. I think we have to sort out this place first. I mean, how on earth can our current administration govern effectively? How can it govern specifically for everyone that voted for them and those of us that didn't vote for them? They need to care for us. Charity starts at home.
There's lots of debate that came out of this yesterday about whether or not ID cards would be the solution, and the reason that France and I think it was Germany don't have the same levels of illegals is because they're able to require documentation. There's obviously always a resistance, I think, particularly from the right, that this would be a sort of return to show us your papers and sort of Marc Francois will be wheeled out saying things like that. What's your position on that?
Yeah, I'm against ID cards, and I'm against them purely
Even if it means that you could get a grip of this problem.
Well, look, I really do want to solve that problem as well, but I think the pragmatic way to solve our border crisis is to patrol our borders correctly and actually have a tough line on sending people back. Once you have a deterrent and say, actually, if you come here illegally, you're going to be sent home, you solve that problem. I think ID cards is a slippery slope to many other things that I wouldn't like to see in this country, personally.
Why do you get so frightened about it? I mean, you have a driving licence, there's lots of forms of ID, you have a passport. Why do you need an ID card then? So that's my argument. It's like ID cards for me are the ultimate way to control people. They are a form of another form of government control on your freedom, your personal life. Controlled who was living in the country.
It's a great argument, but that's what your passport's for, that's what all those other documents are for, and, you know...
You don't
we have this argument
walk around with your passport, do you? Whereas the idea is you'd have your ID card, and therefore if somebody is illegally driving an Uber or whatever it might be, it's much easier to work out who's here and who's gaming.
I think control is just...
I'm telling you, there is plenty... having worked in the technology sector, there's plenty of ways they check on those things before you're even allowed to step near a thing like a cab. But yes, yes, agreed.
I got to check on YouTube there and say check out, and we'll see you again in an hour's time. Here's the weather.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with showers and some longer spells of rain, but if you manage to avoid the showers in the southeast, it will feel warm where you catch the sunshine. So plenty of showers bubbling up across parts of England and Wales. These could be heavy at times with the risk of thunder too. Some longer spells of rain across northern parts of England, across the Scottish borders too. This once again could also be heavy, and some fairly strong winds amongst the showers too, and some stronger winds moving into parts of northern Scotland too, and that's just going to take a bit of a kick off the temperatures too. But as I say, where you catch the sunshine across the southeast, if you manage to avoid the showers, it will be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. Still into the evening, we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain. Still a chance they could be heavy, perhaps seeing even some sleet and snow fall across the Scottish Highlands, and still those blustery winds as well, moving in across parts of Scotland too. Cloudy once again with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland, and elsewhere still plenty of showers continuing into the evening. Still once again could be heavy, still may even hear the odd rumble of thunder. Those showers are going to stick around into the evening, perhaps progressing into longer spells of rain across the southeast, so quite a damp start possible here. And still with those outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland too. Still could be heavy, perhaps still continuing to see that sleet and snow across the Highlands. So generally a cold night, particularly in the north and especially in that brisk wind too. But across the south, generally a mild night on offer for towns and cities. Heading into the middle part of the week, still a fairly unsettled day, still with those longer spells of rain in parts of the northeast. Fair amount of cloud across England and Wales, and still continuing to see those showers bubble up into the afternoon. Once again, a risk of some heavy thundery downpours too, and plenty of strong winds across the country too, which is going to make it feel a little bit chillier. That's it from me. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M8 in Glasgow, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 19 and 18 from Anderston Cross to Charing Cross, causing queues. In Dumfries and Galloway, the A710 is closed south of Dumfries between Maxwell Town and Cargan after an accident. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is closed each way between Hannington and Sywell along the stretch between Kettering and Northampton after an accident yesterday. In Bedfordshire, the A421 remains blocked by flooding at Marston Mortain. In Gloucestershire, the A417 is closed westbound from the Air Balloon roundabout to the A46 because of a spillage. In Carmarthenshire, the A48 is closed eastbound from Carmarthen to Llanderog after an accident, and train services are suspended northbound from Havant to Guildford because of electrical supply problems. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
You want your news to be straight talking. This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Is the number 10 problem bigger than Sue Gray?
That's the question. Officials warn her departure won't resolve the issues at number 10, but will they?
Well, Whitehall sources are claiming it's a desperate attempt from Starmer to reboot his government after months of scandal.
Elsewhere, the Conservative leadership race prepares to whittle 4 candidates to 3.
In the US, Kamala Harris has taken to task on immigration failings, America's influence over Israel, and the cost of living crisis during a new interview overnight.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
In a GB News exclusive, white officers hesitate when dealing with ethnic minorities over fears they could be investigated on the grounds of racism. That's according to the Metropolitan Police Federation.
Reports of bombshell messages from Phillip Schofield to Holly Willoughby are revealed amid the ongoing feud between the pair.
A new report finds more than 20% of job candidates over the age of 50 fail to disclose their age on CVs. We're asking, should you be allowed to hide your age.
And in sport, both Man City and the Premier League claim that they've won their ATP legal battle, but still the 115 charges loom. England got a tough day ahead of them, fielding in 40-degree Pakistan. The second day of the first test just got underway. Pakistan currently 361 for 4, and football has lost another Dutch master.
Hello, good morning. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showers and some longer spells of rain, but there will be some sunshine on the cards. So to find out where, stay tuned for all the details.
A very good morning to you. Tuesday morning, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned to GB News Breakfast. Well, to our top story this morning, and Whitehall officials have warned Sue Gray's dramatic departure won't fix the systemic issues within Number 10.
3 months after the election, Labour's former Chief of Staff has cast doubts over Keir Starmer's leadership, with many seeing this reshuffle as an attempt to reboot government.
Well, in another refresh to the system, political parties will have to publicly justify their reasonings for appointing peers to the House of Lords in an attempt to reduce cronyism.
This all comes as the Conservative leadership race prepares to whittle 4 candidates down to 3 later today. Joining us now, political commentator Andy Williams with this one. What is the state of play on 4 becoming 3?
So we're expecting Tom Tugendhat to be knocked out of the race today, and then tomorrow there'll be another vote that whittles them down to the final 2 in this very, very long Conservative Party leadership contest that has another 4 weeks to run. I'm quite surprised, actually, that the timetable is such that they won't have a leader in place for the budget. I do think that's a missed opportunity where the leader of the opposition responds to the Chancellor. You would have thought that could have been a slam dunk during what's likely to be quite a damaging budget for some people. So that's interesting. But I think all to play for, really. Could it be Kemi? We've got James Cleverly, who seems to have taken the lead. It's a massive choice for the Conservative Party because you've got 3 quite different, assuming that Tom Tugendhat gets knocked out today, you're going to have 3 quite different candidates left.
These are MPs that decide this today.
That's right, yeah. And because there are only 121 Tory MPs, actually, it's a sort of necessarily tight race. So you're going to be looking at who is moving over from Mel Stride, who was the last candidate that got knocked out. And then if, as expected, Tom Tugendhat gets knocked out today, a big play for those MPs who voted for him. Who are they going to move over to tomorrow?
Although the big if, isn't it? Because there could be lots of tactics going on. These are politicians, after all, and they might be thinking, well, if actually we kept Tugendhat in until the next round, then it might make it more easy for us, for example, to get Kemi Badenoch before the membership. So there'll be all sorts of, tactical voting and various parties vying for votes today.
Yeah, there's going to be horse trading games, all of that good stuff. I think the name of the game for all of the other candidates is to keep Kemi Badenoch out of the final 2, because if she gets there, she's highly likely to win with the membership. So there will be lending of votes, all of those sorts of things. It'll be really interesting to see how that pans out.
Andy, why is that? Why do you believe that she's highly likely to win with the membership?
I think this is a bit of a crude way to look at it, but she's probably the most right-wing. She's probably the person who appeals most to Conservative MPs who think that reform is the biggest threat to the Conservative Party.
Robert Jenrick has said he wants to pull out of the ECHR. He's the only one of the 4 candidates that have said that, which is a reform line, of course. So, he's also on the right of it all.
He's been on quite a journey. I think he was always seen to be on the left of the party. I think he voted Remain, if I remember rightly. Yeah. And obviously he has moved quite a bit. He seems to have been radicalised by his experience as immigration minister, where he found that he couldn't get anything done. Now, whether or not that's his fault or the Home Secretary's fault or the government's fault in general, I don't know. But absolutely, he is playing to a particular part of that base. James Cleverly clearly is the more centrist candidate, and what he's been talking about is not just reform and the threat from reform, but also the fact that the Conservatives have to win back voters who went to Labour, voters who went to the Lib Dems.
Meanwhile, whilst the Conservatives work out who's going to be opposing Labour, lots of problems within Downing Street, the sort of problems that we were used to seeing under the Conservatives previously. Sue Gray obviously ousted over the weekend. She's hitting back via her allies. The Times newspaper got prominent Whitehall sources saying that this is actually not going to solve the problems, and she talks about an out-of-control group of males, which plays into this whole picture of Starmer having a woman problem. We've had a female MP resigning, talking about this group of lads in number 10. It's not a great look, is it?
I think Starmer needs to bring everybody into a room this week and say this briefing needs to stop, because it's a really bad look, it's chaotic, and it's not conducive to good government. And these briefings are aggressive and persistent. So I think he needs to just get everyone in a room, bash their heads together, and say, right,
female chancellor.
We're going to. Yeah, he's got
female deputy prime minister.
I don't think he does have a women problem. I really don't. I think actually, if you look at his record, if you look at everything he said, I don't think that's the case. I think clearly Sue Gray has cultivated a pretty significant power base in Whitehall over a long period of time, and of course she has supporters who are coming out and saying these things.
But it is probably true that all of the problems will not go away even with Sue Gray departing from number 10, because you just look at the front of the Mail today and there's more revelations, apparently in a book, all relating to Lord Alli, and serious questions about whether or not he was given access in return for these donations.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no evidence that that's the case, and I've heard nothing to suggest otherwise, but I think Starmer really needs to do two things over the next few weeks. Firstly, he's got to draw a line under all of this freebie stuff. Why on earth he paid back that money last week, I don't know, because it was a partial amount of money that he paid back. He'd said he did nothing wrong, but then he paid back some money which had suggested he did. So I thought that was a strange decision. So draw a line under that and move on. But secondly, and I think more importantly, is there's been a real failure in the first 3 months of this government to articulate a vision, to tell people, what's this government for? Is it about reforming public services? Is it about growing the economy? Is it about restoring trust in politics? It should be all of those things, but nobody is seeing or feeling or understanding kind of where his team are going. So a lot of work to be done there over the next few weeks.
OK, Andy, thank you for your work this morning. Andy Williams is a political commentator. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Your views, whether you agree, whether you disagree with them, please do get in touch and have your say. Meanwhile, in America, Vice President Kamala Harris has taken to task during an interview with CBS News' 60 Minutes programme.
Yeah, this is hugely popular in the States, attracting between 8 and 10 million people. And she was quizzed on the programme about America's failing immigration system. Let's take a look.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem. And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
Now, what could those solutions be? She also skirted around a question of whether Benjamin Netanyahu is or is not a close ally of America.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Well, this comes as the former President Donald Trump spoke at an event in Florida and blamed the American leadership for the October the 7th attacks.
A lot of that has to do with the leadership of this country. This attack, the October 7th attack, would never have happened if I was president. I can tell you.
Well, I'm delighted to say we're joined in the studio by Chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson. Good to see you, Greg.
Good morning.
So what do you make of what Donald Trump had to say, that those October the 7th attacks would not have happened if he had been the boss?
Well, like many things that President Trump says, he tends to exaggerate. He uses hyperbole. You know, is it 100% accurate? Impossible to say, right? It's a hypothetical. But he does have a point. And quite often when he says things that are sort of unfiltered, it ends up being right, or it ends up being true. And I think if you look at the evidence, if you look at what happened, the botched Afghanistan withdrawal by Biden, all kinds of demonstrations of weakness around the world, the war on American energy from Biden and Harris, you know, again, from day one, as Kamala pointed out, you know, that enabled a lot of our adversaries to profit, first of all, with higher oil prices. But then he runs around the world begging Putin to pump more oil, begging Venezuela to pump more oil. So it all comes back to energy policy and also the botched Afghanistan withdrawal. So, I think Trump has a point.
His inference about what happened in those attacks a year ago is that there was never a threat from Biden, there was no strength coming from Biden, that anybody who carried out that attack on Israel felt there were not going to be repercussions from the USA.
Exactly, Eamonn. There's no sense of the fear of deterrence or the threat of deterrence. And that's, again, started with Afghanistan, but in many other cases, right? So they were essentially funding the proxies of Iran by dropping $6 billion in their wallets immediately, but also, again, with the war on energy and ending the embargo on Iran, which he's continuing to do even to today. They are not enforcing sanctions on Iran, and that's put $60 billion in the pockets of the mullahs. So that funded Hamas, that funded Hezbollah, funded the Houthis. So I think you could point to a lot of things that would suggest that, you know, surely Hamas felt emboldened, and obviously Iran feels emboldened right now.
Let's talk about Kamala Harris. Give us a sense of the CBS 60 Minutes programme. Is it viewed as a sort of left-leaning channel? Because I know in America it's all very partisan.
Yeah.
It's hugely popular and widely watched. And I think the reason she's doing this media blitz is to sort of answer a lot of the criticisms coming from Republicans that she's been quite quiet and avoiding interrogation. Does this, you know, satiate that hunger at all?
It probably does, because it is a popular show. It is very left-leaning. There's no doubt about, you know, CBS, ABC, NBC, the major networks are obviously very left. But I think that, you know, good for the 60 Minutes show for actually asking the questions. And he didn't just let her slide. You know, I think in the past, you know, with Lester Holt, you know, really softball questions and not a lot of follow-up. In this case, I don't think he would let her go with that sort of word salad answer or non-answer to the question. And it's a real big issue. It's the number 2 issue for Americans, the border crisis. And, you know, she mentioned day one. Yeah, day one, they flipped the switch and literally opened and welcomed 10 million illegal migrants into the country and then started flying them around the country into different pockets. I mean, there's not a lot of... I don't blame her for avoiding the question or avoiding the answer. I really don't. But she didn't really do a good job of sidestepping it. It's pretty obvious.
She's avoiding everything, Greg.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, Trump and J.D. Vance have done 69 interviews with the press. The combined Kamala and Waltz is under 30. So it's more than double, but also they didn't do any until early September. So, you know, she's done a good job of avoiding issues, avoiding the press, but it really can't last up until Election Day. I think last night was a good example of that.
Craig, are you of the opinion the election is as wide open as it's being predicted?
There seems to be trends over the last few months. So obviously Kamala Harris had a great August when they did the re-imaging of her and of course the media boycott by her campaign. That's changed a little bit, and then you've seen more recently swings where Kamala and Tim Walz will have a good week and then a bad week. 2 weeks ago she was up 4 points in the betting odds. Trump yesterday was up 8.5 points. So you're seeing a very good week or two for Trump. The rally on Saturday was quite successful.
Musk, going back to where he was shot. And
really successful, smart move politically. He's not doing as many rallies. I think that's wise because he does much better in the smaller town hall forums. And you saw the clip in Florida talking about Israel. You know, that when he sticks to one topic and just gets into the weeds a little bit, he does really well. The rallies are great for the base. I thought Saturday was really well executed, but I wouldn't suggest that he does that every day.
Craig, you're chair of Republican Overseas. Come the election day, night, what's the atmosphere? What will be happening? Where will you be? What will you be hosting or doing?
Yeah, so we're not going to host anything on election night because we don't get the results till 2 in the morning. That's if the results come in immediately. But we're worried about Pennsylvania specifically. It's obviously a critical swing state. They will count ballots for 7 days after Election Day. They don't start counting their mail-in ballots until election night. So it gives them a chance to sort of see the numbers and how far they're behind, and then how many ballots they need, it's a little questionable. So I think, we're a little bit nervous about the outcome of Pennsylvania specifically, but also I don't expect to have the results.
You're already suspecting foul play before?
Yeah, because it's in Pennsylvania they have massive mail-in ballot volumes, and they changed the laws right before the 2020 election, and basically permitting massive mail-in voting. That they chose to keep that law in place. They didn't really do it perfectly legally. They did it, or they went around the legislature, which is against the law. But the legislature has since gone Democrat.
How do you cast your vote?
I do it through absentee balloting. So, there's a process. You have to go online and basically ask your local, the place where you vote, state
Where
or
is
local.
That for you?
In Illinois.
Illinois, yeah.
So in many ways, it doesn't really matter, because it's a solidly blue state. But, I still like to vote for my congressman. And so, down ballot is important. But I think that, we're just kind of worried about the timing. So I don't expect to have a big election night party, or even the next night where we will have a function, because...
You don't sound too confident.
I think it's a toss-up. I mean, it's really going to be close, and the Democrat Party is really good at ballot harvesting. Mm. This is a new concept. A generation ago, you would call it cheating, but it was made perfectly legal in 2020. So the Republicans are trying their best to do the same, but the Democrats are really good at it. They did it in 20, but they also did it in the midterms in 22. They ballot harvest, and that's something where it doesn't matter your policies, your argument. You're not trying to swing undecided voters or persuadables. You're just trying to get more Democrats to vote, and I think they're doing a good job of it.
Well, thanks for whetting our appetite, Greg. Appreciate it, and we'll obviously talk to you again before, during, and after all that goes on.
Great to be here.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you both.
Right, let's get a check on the forecast now with Honor Krizik.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with showers and some longer spells of rain, but if you manage to avoid the showers in the southeast, it will feel warm where you catch the sunshine. So plenty of showers bubbling up across parts of England and Wales. These could be heavy at times with the risk of thunder too. Some longer spells of rain across northern parts of England, across the Scottish borders too. This once again could also be heavy, and some fairly strong winds amongst the showers too, and some stronger winds moving into parts of northern Scotland too, and that's just going to take a bit of a kick off the temperatures too. But as I say, where you catch the sunshine across the southeast, if you manage to avoid the showers, it will be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. Still into the evening, we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain. Still a chance they could be heavy, perhaps seeing even some sleet and snow fall across the Scottish Highlands, and still those blustery winds as well moving in across parts of Scotland too. Cloudy once again with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland, and elsewhere still plenty of showers continuing into the evening. Still once again could be heavy, still may even hear the odd rumble of thunder. Those showers are going to stick around into the evening, perhaps progressing into longer spells of rain across the southeast, so quite a damp start possible here. And still with those outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland too. Still could be heavy, perhaps still continuing to see that sleet and snow across the Highlands. So generally a cold night, particularly in the north and especially in that brisk wind too. But across the south, generally a mild night on offer for towns and cities. Heading into the middle part of the week, still a fairly unsettled day, still with those longer spells of rain in parts of the northeast. Fair amount of cloud across England and Wales, and still continuing to see those showers bubble up into the afternoon. Once again, a risk of some heavy thundery downpours too, and plenty of strong winds across the country too, which is going to make it feel a little bit chillier. That's it from me. Bye for now.
Woo! A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
As we've been mentioning today, the Conservative leadership contest race prepares to whittle 4 candidates down to 3. We're going to be talking about that next from...
Well, we've got the Shadow Education Secretary, Damian Hinds.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mark Dolan Tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets and my take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 7:23. We're joined now by the Shadow Secretary of State for Education, Damian Hinds. Good morning to you. Good to see you from a bright-looking Westminster. I wasn't sure if the sun had risen at this point. It's so dark in here. Good morning. I'm not clear who you're supporting in the leadership contest. Have you declared?
No, look, I've not made a declaration. I think we've got 4 really strong candidates. Obviously, we've got a round today, another round tomorrow, and then there'll be the members' round. I took a decision at the start of the contest not to make a declaration until we got to that final stage. But I think it's been a very well contested election. Obviously, at the party conference last week, that was a really important opportunity for people to set out their stall. And I think both party members and, of course, the wider public got a chance to see all 4 of them in action.
The former mayor and former boss of John Lewis has rode in behind Tom Tugendhat, but it seems likely from a lot of the commentary that he might be the first to fall today. Are you hearing about, I know you don't want to talk about who you're supporting, but are you hearing about lots of horse trading, lots of tactical voting, lots of plotting?
No, what I'm hearing about is my colleagues in Parliament thinking very hard, very long and very reflectively about what's just happened in the election and about what happened in the years preceding, and making sure that in the decision we make now that then goes to the final round in this contest, that this sets us on a really good firm path for the centre-right, for making sure we've got a compelling proposition to put to the British public come the next election. Meanwhile, we're all also focused on holding the government to account, and part of that today is we have a motion coming to the floor of the House of Commons on the government's very damaging plans to put tax on education. I think that's a very important debate, and actually something on which all of the leadership contenders are united in saying we shouldn't be taxing learning. We should be supporting people's choice, and we should be supporting particular groups of pupils who will get caught out by this, including groups I don't imagine for a moment Labour Party ever initially imagined they wanted to target. And it's time that the government rethought this plan and reversed it.
They're not taxing education, they're taxing privilege.
No, it's taxing education, Eamonn. Look, right around the world, there's a principle that you don't tax learning. I mean, there's no tax break, by the way, for having a child at private school. The Labour Party talk a lot about removing a tax break. There is no tax break. A tax break would be if you had some reduction in your tax because you weren't taking up a place in a state school. And that's not what happens. Everybody contributes, rightly, everybody contributes to state education, whether you take up a place or not, but for all sorts of reasons. Some parents, if they're able to, may decide to take up a place at an independent school instead. And we think that principle of parental choice is really important. Obviously, for the great majority of children, that is in the state system. And we also defend very strongly parents' right to choose within the state system and the variety, the diversity of schools within that. But where they do choose an independent sector education, we also defend that right. And it's a right that exists in many, many countries around the world.
But Damian, there'll be a lot of people listening to you today, and private education will not be within their reach, and they'll think, what's this got to do with me? Could you outline if it went wrong with private education?
Yeah.
If this penalty was placed upon private education, what would it actually do to the rest of the system? Would it impose on the rest of the system?
Yes, it would. And look, you raise a really important question. You're right that for most people, of course, it's not a choice that is within their ability to make, within their range of choices. But if children are displaced from the private sector, from independent schools into state schools, and some will, we don't know how many, let's be honest, and the government haven't come forward with their assessment of how many, but some will. And that will mean taking up more places in state schools. That will mean bigger class sizes. It will mean more disruption for schools, and ultimately it reduces any parent's chance of getting their preferred choice of school within the state system, because more of those schools will be full.
Often drives up prices around the best performing schools. Do you think it's likely that this VAT will be levied on private schools, or do you think that actually the government will have to row back on it in light of the multiple challenges it's facing? There's one, I think, on human rights around an autistic child. I think the military families are very upset because their kids can't be looked after whilst they're serving the country. There's concerns about the French and German schools because they think they're being discriminated against. And you've got the unions as well saying the date is far too soon. Might they U-turn on it?
No, you're quite right. There's really three sets of objections. The first is the in principle objection that education should not be taxed, and all but universally around the world that's a principle that is observed. The second objection is about some of those particular groups of peoples and families that you mentioned, like families who are in the military serving our country abroad, like children on the music and dance scheme, like children with special educational needs. And then the third objection is just about the speed of it, the headlong rush that the government is going into, rushing into doing something in less than 3 months' time when none of these things have been sorted out. As you rightly say, even unions are saying that you cannot do this in time for January. You must at least delay it. But actually, I think it's really important that they rethink all those other aspects as well.
Damian, the clock has beaten us. Good talking to you. Damian Hinds is the Shadow Secretary of State for Education. We will take a break there. Up next, the Transport Secretary, Louise Haigh, will be here to outline plans to invest £500 million in electric buses after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Dumfries and Galloway, the A710 is closed in both directions south of Dumfries between Maxwell Town and Cargan after an accident. The M6 in Cumbria is blocked northbound just after junction 37 at Kendal, causing queues. Also in Cumbria, the A591 is blocked by an accident off the Plumgarth roundabout in Kendal. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is closed northbound from Sywell to Hannington after an accident, that causing delays heading away from Northampton towards Kettering. In Bedfordshire, the A421 remains blocked blocked by flooding at Beancroft Road at Marston Mortain. The diversion's often back on by the slip roads. In Kent, the A299 is partly blocked eastbound by an accident between St Nicholas at Wade and Monkton, and train services are suspended northbound from Havant to Guildford because of electrical supply problems. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We say good morning now to the Government Transport Secretary, Louise Haig. Louise, good morning.
Good morning.
Louise, you're going to get very excited now, aren't you? Because you're going to talk about electric buses. And why do you love electric buses, and how good are we doing at electric buses? And being from Northern Ireland, I have a big interest in electric buses because Wright Bus in Ballymena in Northern Ireland, we produce a lot of these beautiful new Routemaster type buses there are in London. So why is the future electric? What are you doing? How far along the road are you?
Well, today we're really delighted to announce £500 million of go-ahead investment in Wright Bus in Ballymena in Northern Ireland, who are going to be making 1,200 new electric buses that will be delivered across the country, delivering a far better passenger experience, cleaning our air, and boosting jobs in Ballymena. So it's a win-win for the country as a whole, and it's a massive vote of confidence from Go Ahead in this country and in the government's bus revolution, as we are expanding powers and control to every corner of the country to run buses in the interest of their own communities.
And your main motivation for this is what? Is net zero? Is cleaning up the air? Is the economy? What is your main motivation behind this?
Well, this is an investment from Go Ahead, a transport company. It's their decision to invest in electric buses, but it's been proven that passengers prefer them. They're a smoother, quieter, cleaner ride, and that's why it's actually been shown to increase patronage in some areas. But it's also ensuring that we've got more buses on the road, newer buses that will help clean up the air. You know, in areas of the country, like mine in Sheffield, air pollution is so high that some people with lung diseases or breathing issues can't leave the house at certain times of the day or certain times of the year because the air quality is so poor. So it's achieving a better service for bus passengers and cleaning up our air.
It is a company owned by an Australian-based transport company, isn't it? Kinetic Group. And my understanding is that you're hosting this big inaugural investment forum on Monday with the hope of attracting lots of foreign investment into this country to try and boost the economy. Great. Everybody can get behind that and understand why. But I suppose it begs the question then, is it time to reconsider your policy on non-DOMs? We saw what happened when François Hollande decided to remove the benefits for them in France. They all flooded to London. We saw a huge input of wealthy people from France into this country. And now all the expertise and all the Treasury are saying, actually, this non-DOMs policy of yours could actually end up costing the Treasury money. So if you want to attract foreign investment like Go Ahead, you need to scrap this clampdown on non-DOMs, don't you?
Well, look, we believe that if people come and make their life here, they should pay their taxes here.
They do pay taxes on what they earn here, to be clear.
Responsibility will. But we believe that if they've come here, that loophole should be addressed, and they should pay their taxes here, and it shouldn't continue to be exploited by the very wealthy.
Even if that ends up costing the Treasury money,
who earn. So the OBR will properly assess and analyse that impact with the budget, so we'll be able to see how much money this will raise. But as we set out ahead of the general election, closing the non-DOM loophole will ensure that money goes into our NHS to bring down the waiting list. I'm sure many of your viewers would rather the wealthy pay their tax and we can properly fund the NHS so that people don't have to wait for their critical treatment or wait to see a GP.
Yeah, just to stress that point, I mean, the people who are non-DOMs do pay tax on everything they earn in this country. It's just whether or not they have to pay taxes in this country based on their earnings overseas. Can we talk about Sue Gray? Because it seems as though her allies have been briefing the papers, specifically The Times this morning, talking about an out-of-control group of males surrounding the Prime Minister who felt threatened by her. Does the Prime Minister have a woman problem?
Absolutely not. We've got the first female Chancellor. The Cabinet is gender balanced for the first time in our history. We have more female Labour MPs than the Tory MPs have in total. So there is no suggestion at all of any such issue. And what I would say to colleagues is stop the briefing on all sides. That kind of briefing doesn't help anybody. And we need to get focused on the delivery of government. We've already achieved so much in less than 100 days. We've made steps to bring our railways back into public ownership. We've rolled out powers so that every corner of the country can take back control of their buses. We've established the new Border Security Command. We've set up GB Energy. We've given permissions for solar farms across the country. We've already started the delivery on our manifesto commitments, and that is what will restore trust in politics and that politicians can actually change people's lives for the good again.
But you also have had one of your politicians, one of your MPs quitting already before the first 100 days, a female, Rosie Duffield, who described the lads being in charge. And according to Sue Gray's treatment in Number 10, a senior woman has been dissuaded from applying to be Starmer's new cabinet secretary. It's not great optics, is it?
I just don't recognise that categorisation at all, and I think many will know that Rosie Duffield had been very unhappy for some time, both prior to the election, and so it wasn't an enormous surprise to see her leave the Labour Party, although I was sorry to see her go. I don't recognise that there is any such problem in Number 10 or around the Labour Party, and as I say, we are the first cabinet to be gender balanced, and we have more female Labour MPs than the Tory MPs have in total.
And do you think that things will improve now that Sue Gray is out? Because I ask you this, a YouGov poll says that more than half of Britons think the new Labour government is sleazy. 59% of them saying that. And I look at the front of the Daily Mail today, and there are reports that are due to be revealed in a new book that show that Lord Alli, who made these significant donations to key members of the Labour Party, was able then to draw up a timetable for the party's first 100 days. He advised on appointments and even attended talks with civil servants, which begs the question, of course, of whether or not this was some sort of cash for access that he was being awarded.
So I've not seen any allegations that there was anything given in return for donations. Lord Alli is a Labour politician in his own right, and he has made donations to the Labour Party over many years in order to help us win campaigns. The reason that we're talking about these issues at the moment is because they were all declared in the right and proper way on the register of interests. That's very different from concerns and allegations that were made around the previous government when there are donations that weren't properly declared and we didn't know where they were coming from. But Keir Starmer has reflected on the mood of the country and the concern around this, and that's why we're now drawing up a new code around hospitality and gifts that will be published shortly that will hopefully restore some trust and address some of the concerns that have been raised.
Louise, could I just say what a great day it's going to be for you. I believe in things in politics that actually make a difference to people's lives and the quality of our lives. And you're talking about this collaboration between Go Ahead and Wrightbus, which not only means jobs, particularly for Northern Ireland here as well, but also, it's all going to improve our lives. I think so many buses, we're attached to buses from the 70s and the 80s, polluting awful things around the whole country. And today it starts here. It could change. And good luck to you with what you're announcing. I hope it goes well for you.
Thank you so much. You can get on board our bus revolution.
Do you know what the thing is? I haven't been on a bus for ages.
I'm often on a bus.
Nice day. It'll be a quiet day. It'll be very, very nice. That'll be good. We'll go up to Sheffield and tour around in a new bus up there. Good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
When was the last time you were on a bus?
Oh, I don't know, last time I was in London a couple of weeks ago.
Was it?
Well, yeah, all the time.
I haven't been on a bus.
Well, when I lived in London, that was how you get about. It's how you get to the tube station and train station and all the like. But yeah, it's more when I'm up at weekends now than the weekdays. But I love it. I love a bus.
I just love to see people on buses. I hate to see buses going around towns and cities and nobody on them. So what is the point? They're going to be quieter. They're going to be cleaner. They're going to look very well. I think the thing about the buses that Wrightbus design, so futuristic, very lovely looking, and they adorn much of London. It has to be said. Not so keen on the glider buses, but you know, they're big and they're long and they're different. But anyway, there we go. Let us know your bus experience this morning.
Right, just 3 weeks left until you can get your hands on this £36,000 of tax-free cash. Here are all the details.
On demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, the first thing on in my mind when I heard about this is what has this country come to when we're talking about getting kids as young as 6 years old to be jabbed weekly or however often it is because they are too fat. Where are the parents in all of this? There's three things actually here that are important. Number one is we do not know the long-term consequences of these jabs. So if I had a child and I was going to let them have the jab, I would be feeling like I'm treating them like a lab rat, to be quite honest with you, because we don't know the long-term consequences. Secondly, the manufacturers are clear that some of the potential side effects can be very serious. We're talking about potentially pancreatitis, let's get my word out, and also it lists as a potential side effect thyroid cancer. Arguably, it's called the gamble jab, to be honest with you, because of these potential side effects at the moment. And then thirdly, I come back to the parents. Where are the parents in all of this? Because they are the role models. So it really is about parenting, and it's about parenting from being a role model yourself in terms of being slim and healthy and not expecting a jab to take your place and other people to take your place. If you have children, they are your responsibility. Think before you breed. The other thing you need to remember with this is when you stop taking that jab, it is highly likely that you're going to put all the weight back on. Now, the thought of a child of 6 years of age, starting with that jab, conditioning them mentally to live with that jab, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely not on.
GB News. The People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's go through the papers this morning with Alex Armstrong and Claire Muldoon. Very good to see you both, guys. Morning. The US election looming. It's coming closer and closer, Alex.
Well, we've got a big story that dropped on the back of that, with Biden putting pressure, supposedly, on Starmer and Lammy to give up the Chagos Islands. Now, this was in Parliament yesterday, the first time we actually heard the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, speak about it. And today, the Telegraph are backing up Lammy's claims that the President of the United States said, give them over, basically. We want security on the island. Now, what was interesting, just slightly changing the tune here, is that James Cleverly, who was part of the negotiations on this, left to the Commons just a couple of minutes before this debate started. Now, I think that is the ultimate cop-out of any politician who went... and he put this tweet out, very, very sanctimonious, going, how dare Labour do this? How dare they give it up?
Don't ask me any questions.
But don't ask me about it.
Yeah, because the negotiations started on his watch.
On his watch, that's right.
But was it the only MP that actually asked any questions was Mark Francois?
There was a few questions and a few criticisms of Lammy, some very, very good takedowns. Tom Tugendhat did a good... I'm not a big Tugendhat fan myself, but it was a good takedown.
The thing is that Biden is basically saying they're important to world security, they're important to American dominance, and give them to us so we can do what we want with them, rather than you guys piddling about.
Well, they were basically saying, look, we want the security of this base settled, and this whole sovereignty issue was causing some... supposedly causing some speculation as to whether it would be secure. So they're saying, actually, get it done. That's what they told us to do.
But you know what? I'm OK if somebody reasons with me like that.
Or whether we're just told.
They just don't say why things are.
At what cost? You know, yes, it's important to secure this strategically important military base, Diego Garcia.
Well, I would say
at what cost to the taxpayer?
Important.
But tell us the cost to the taxpayer.
Well, we're only going to have to now have a fight with Mauritius to get the money back or pay them the money they're going to extol from us in terms of renting out the airbase and
and of course the threat of China. I think Richard Tice did a great job yesterday saying, you know, we did a deal with Mauritius where he actually did give it. We got sovereignty in this deal. Now they're going back on the second deal. So lots to unfold on this still.
Well,
OK, what's caught your attention, Claire?
Well, lots has caught my attention today. Let's go with modern comedy, 2PC. I would say it is in some respects, but absolutely not, says the expert.
Tell me what your modern comedy is, because...
I don't find it funny.
Well, what is modern comedy? I don't know where it is. I have to go to the Gold Channel to find anything funny to watch.
I do as well, funnily enough, because it's the best comedy out. Things like Little Britain on there, brilliant comedy. And I'm 33.
In the Grave,
I've been watching and enjoying Colin from Accounts, which is
fantastic.
And it's not PC at all.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but it's Australian.
Funny. Yeah.
It's not homegrown comedy anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And we have to look back, like Fawlty Towers, at all the rest of the great comedies. Absolutely fabulous. Little Britain. There's a lot of them. And one of them is John Plowman. And he was actually the producer who did all of these. Ab Fab. He did Lisa... And he was saying that Lisa McGee's Dairy Girls is one of the best produced comedies out, and I agree. I think that is just brilliantly done.
Yeah.
But we're finding now, like Mrs. Brown's Boys, that won another BAFTA. I'm sorry, that ain't funny. There's so much other stuff out there that's not funny, and I think the problem is writers, when they go into writers' rooms, and the BBC, I would say, is the worst for it. They're trying to get commissions, and the people who are commissioning are too frightened to take the punt and say, yeah, we'll commission it. And they're having to go to places like Ricky Gervais for Afterlife, which is another beautifully produced
piece of drama.
And it's a good example of why it doesn't work, right? It's a good example of why this won't work in the long run, because when you look at someone like Ricky Gervais, he got that, I think it was an Oscar or something, like record-breaking viewers on Netflix for his shows, which are not woke. So it's what you've got to cater to the actual real people, not what you want to hear in a diversity.
About real world. That's what makes people laugh. If you were to hear us out there, we wouldn't be asked back on live on air.
It's so
That's
true.
all I'm saying.
It's so true.
The shop in Open All Hours, the Ronnie Barker, David Jason comedy, is up for sale.
Is it really?
It's a hairdresser's. So they transformed it into a sort of whatever type shop it is, a hardware shop for the TV series. But it's up for sale for 130 grand or so.
Alex, let's talk about Keir and Ange as they're being described in The Sun. Apparently at conference, if you paid 50 grand, you could have your photograph taken with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it, when you put it like that? This actually comes on the back of another sort of what the Sun were dubbing cash for croissants with Jonathan Reynolds. Just a week ago we heard that story break where they were offering up to 30 grand to have a photo in your name plastered with Jonathan Reynolds. I don't know who would pay this ridiculous amount of money, but of course if you're a business person, this is not about the photo, this is about opportunity to speak to the Prime Minister and get his ear.
Well, then you can put that picture in your reception of your office and you can say, look, I have direct access to Ange and Keir.
Absolutely. But also, you know, people will say this is another cash for access thing, isn't it? This is another example of the cronyism that's surrounding this party. But I will say this, to be some balance, and we've got to give some balance.
How are they supposed to raise money? Yeah.
Right, that's exactly what I was going to say, and this is not unusual for political parties to do, so I have to be fair to them. This is not exclusive to the Labour Party.
Well, to anyone close to the studios, Alex and I will be outside, and we'll give out free croissants, and we will not charge for a picture.
Well, maybe a fiver, let's do that. Cash for photos.
Right, who's just had a turn? Is it your turn now, Claire?
Right, OK, so we have to address it. I have to.
Go on then.
Front page of the Mirror, front page of the Sun, front page all over. Phil to Holly, you brought me down. I mean, come on. There was 3 people that was said that he brought them down. Phillip Schofield brought himself down. No one else. It was his behaviour, his inability to tell the truth brought him down. No one else. There were people there that enabled, and I'm sorry, the 3 people that he said didn't know and brought him down, they did know. There was a load of people that knew.
How did you appeared on the show quite a lot of this morning show. How did you find him towards you?
I find him, if I broke a joke before we went on air, he would laugh, right, and it'd be really funny, because I'm quite a funny person.
Then he'd tell your joke, would he?
He would then tell the joke.
Yeah.
That really annoys me. Really annoys me. Maybe I should do a writing room in the
yeah.
Comedy.
Get you a podcast.
There's a lot of comedy on that programme on This Morning. And then when all of this came out, I had a conversation with you. It was brought up on TikTok. I'm now blacklisted from This Morning. They won't have me on because of what I said.
Ridiculous.
I spoke the truth. And I'm sorry if you've got any gumption.
That's down to the other, what they're called...
Martin Frizzell and Emma Gormley.
Correct. That's down there. That's a whole other story. Back after the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with showers and some longer spells of rain, but if you manage to avoid the showers in the southeast, it will feel warm where you catch the sunshine. So plenty of showers bubbling up across parts of England and Wales. These could be heavy at times with the risk of thunder too. Some longer spells of rain across northern parts of England, across the Scottish borders too. This once again could also be heavy. And some fairly strong winds amongst the showers too, and some stronger winds moving into parts of northern Scotland too. And that's just going to take a bit of a kick off the temperatures too. But as I say, where you catch the sunshine across the southeast, if you manage to avoid the showers, it will be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. Still into the evening, we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain. Still a chance they could be heavy, perhaps seeing even some sleet and snow fall across the Scottish Highlands, and still those blustery winds as well moving in across parts of Scotland too. Cloudy once again with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland, and elsewhere still plenty of showers continuing into the evening. Still once again could be heavy, still may even hear the odd rumble of thunder. Those showers are going to stick around into the evening, perhaps progressing into longer spells of rain across the southeast, so quite a damp start possible here. And still with those outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland too. Still could be heavy, perhaps still continuing to see that sleet and snow across the Highlands. So generally a cold night, particularly in the north and especially in that brisk wind too. But across the south, generally a mild night on offer for towns and cities. Heading into the middle part of the week, still a fairly unsettled day, still with those longer spells of rain in parts of the northeast. Fair amount of cloud across England and Wales and still continuing to see those showers bubble up into the afternoon. Once again, a risk of some heavy thundery downpours too, and plenty of strong winds across the country too, which is going to make it feel a little bit chillier. That's it from me. Bye for now.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Dumfries and Galloway, the A710 is closed in both directions south of Dumfries after an accident last night. In Cumbria, the A591 is blocked by an accident between the Plumgarth roundabout and A6 at Kendal. The M42 in Warwickshire is blocked southbound by an accident at junction 3A for the M40 causing queues. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is closed northbound from Sywell to Hannington after an accident yesterday. In Bedfordshire, the A421 remains blocked by flooding at Marston Mortain. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, the southbound entry slip roads closed at junction 12, the Quedgley and Hardwick turn after an accident with queues towards there. On the M4 in Berkshire, the inside lanes closed eastbound where a van's broken down just before junction 89 at Maidenhead, causing delays. Train services are suspended northbound from Havant to Guildford. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. Is the number 10 problem bigger than just Sue Gray?
Officials warn her departure won't resolve the systemic issues in number 10 as questions grow over the Prime Minister's leadership.
Whitehall sources claim it's a desperate attempt from the Prime Minister to reboot his government after months of scandal.
Elsewhere, the Tory leadership race prepares to whittle 4 candidates down to 3.
Kamala Harris is taken to task on immigration failings, America's influence over Israel, and the cost of living crisis during a new interview overnight.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
In a GB News exclusive, white officers are hesitating when dealing with ethnic minorities over fears they could be investigated on the grounds of racism. That's according to the Metropolitan Police Federation.
A new report finds more than 20% of job candidates over the age of 50 fail to disclose their age. We're asking, should you be allowed to hide it?
I'm 33. Both Manchester City and the Premier League claim that they've won their ATP legal battle, but still those 115 charges loom. Manchester United executives meet today. Are you worried? Eric Ten Hag and the Leicester Rugby fan who got knocked out on the pitch at Newcastle on his stag do.
Hello, good morning. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showers and some longer spells of rain, but there will be some sunshine on the cards. So to find out where, stay tuned for all the details.
Just after 8 o'clock, a very good morning to you on this Tuesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Mr. Paul.
Sir.
So you were saying Manchester United executives meet today?
Yes. Yeah, all the big wigs are going to be there.
Right.
Are you there?
Huh?
Have they asked you?
I was there last week.
Did anybody... Let me just ask you, just between us.
Yeah.
Did anybody say to you, Eamonn, do you think Erik ten Hag should stick around? Was that mentioned at any point?
Did they say
Erik ten Hag should stay as manager? Was that mentioned?
It's the subject that no one dares rear the name.
Is it the elephant in the room, the Erik ten Hag elephant?
And I think that he's packed his bags, we've learned today.
You really think so?
But he's gone on holiday.
He's packed his bags.
Might be a bad time to go on holiday. But the talk is that there's contact being made again with Thomas Tuchel, who used to manage Chelsea.
Yeah, that's right.
For instance. And whether there is reservations on Tuchel's behalf or United's behalf, just not sure. But that's been reopened again.
What is it? What must it be like? Because Erik ten Hag knows. See, this is during the summer. He knows very well that all the hierarchy, they were interviewing other people. And he's sitting there, waiting there, just thinking,
yeah,
well...
It's tough.
Wouldn't you just prefer... Because when you're a football manager, if you get fired, you will get paid off. So you get paid off the rest of your contract. So wouldn't there be part of you think, you know what? Is this worth the trouble? I'm going to take the money and I'm going to... Just get rid of me. And I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. Say there are GB News bosses out there talking about replacing Isabel.
Yeah.
What would we do?
Oh, my goodness me.
What would we do?
We'd get Gareth Southgate in instead.
What?
That would maybe the answer.
Does that not keep you awake at night?
I'd say there are other people more at risk. I don't know.
What are you looking at me for? What have you heard? I'm not going on holiday. I daren't.
Right. You manage at Manchester United. Maybe not.
Well, what about the management at the top of Downing Street? According to the Times newspaper, Whitehall officials are saying that Sue Gray's dramatic departure won't fix the systemic issues within Downing Street.
Now, we're going to be talking about this throughout the programme this morning, and also we're interested in your views on this. Sue Gray, do you think she's a fall guy for all of this, or is Starmer to blame for what has gone wrong so far? Who has been behind all the big policies so far announced, taking the cash away from the pensioners, the winter fuel allowance? I mean, I'm sure no one twisted Keir Starmer's arm to accept glasses and free suits and for him and his wife and all that sort of thing. But is that Sue Gray's?
Well, exactly. And the problems, will they stop now that she's gone? I mean, you only have to look at the papers this morning and the Daily Mail already quoting a whole bunch of other allegations at Lord Alli. So they're going to rumble on, just whether or not Morgan McSweeney can get a grip of it. We'll have more on that a little bit later on in the programme, but we're going to talk now about ageism. Because a study has revealed that more than 1 in 5 job candidates over the age of 50 are failing to mention their age on their CVs to avoid being stereotyped.
Well, according to a website called Total Jobs, candidates over the age of 57 are considered too old and they're just immediately ruled out right, left and centre. So should you be allowed to hide your age?
Well, let's debate this morning by the former foreign correspondent Charlotte Eagar and the communications manager of Ladies of Liberty, Jess Gill. Good morning to you.
Just seriously, ladies, this doesn't affect you two, obviously, in terms of your age range. But do you ever sit and wonder? It may affect you in terms of your sex or your background or what school you went to or whatever. But do you sit and worry about your age, or will the day come that you will worry about it?
Well, yes, very much so. I mean, I have been looking for a job now for some years, and I've had terrible, terrible problems. I'm in my late 50s now, and I lost my kind of regular contract about a decade ago. And I've applied for job after job after job. Now, I don't want to boast, but I've got a pretty high-powered career. I was a foreign correspondent. I won awards. I've been an middle management executive on the Sunday Telegraph, on the Mail on Sunday. I was a contributing editor on Newsweek. And I found it almost impossible to get a job. I would get down to the last 3 for every job I applied for. And then suddenly it would just go blank and I wouldn't get it. And I've noticed this amongst many, many of my contemporaries. My contemporaries basically fall into 2 categories. Those who are still working now and are frankly quite well paid and generally worried about how their children can afford flats. And those who aren't working and can't believe it's happened to them. And we all apply for jobs and we do what they call consultancy rates, which are basically being freelance. But there's no security in it. And yet, we're going to have to continue working now, probably until we're 70. But how? We're all living so much longer now. And people's brains are so much more alert, I think, a lot of the time now. With lots of energy. I'm quite fit. I swim every day. And yet nobody will employ me permanently, and that is very odd and quite frightening.
It's very odd. I'd hire you, absolutely. But whether or not you should be able to hide your age, Jess Gill, on your CV, whether or not that would change anything, because ultimately you still have to have those face-to-face interactions. Is there an underlying ageism that you can't escape?
One thing it may change is that often, and I should say to both of you, that age is associated with what you're being paid, and usually the older you are, the more expensive you're going to be, Jess. Could that come into it?
Yeah, I do agree. Thank you for having me on the show. I think age discrimination happens at whatever age. I'm sure you guys have experiences of being a young person and struggling to find a job, or maybe it is a recent thing. But even so, at a young age, you're discriminated against for other reasons. And I think regardless of what age you are, you will face these stereotypes and you will face these barriers. And in all honesty, young people aren't as qualified as old people, and there are reasons why people might employ people of different ages. It makes sense that in a job where you need someone more mature, you would want someone older. Or if you want someone working at a bar, for example, you might want someone younger working on their feet all day. I think that makes sense, and I think ultimately it should be up to the employer. I'm a strong believer in freedom of choice, and I think it should be up to the employer and up to the free market, because you shouldn't force people to work. You shouldn't force an employer to employ someone. I think that doesn't make any sense.
But you can be forced. You can be forced to retire, so you can be. I mean, I know a number of people who sit on boards and whatever, or even they have a job and then it's politely put to them, maybe it's time you should go, or there's a payoff. And why should they go? I mean, I was speaking to a number of men in their 60s last week, and I was saying, I certainly don't feel I want to retire, and I feel that I'm at the height of what I do, and I should be in demand. Why do people want to wind you down when you get into your 60s? That's the question.
Well, I think there's an implication, as Jess said, that you're more expensive. So one of the things that various issues I've faced in job interviews when they've said, well, we'd have to take you to the top of the company, we'd have to pay you $250,000 a year. And I go, no, you don't have to do that at all. I'd be really happy with 75,000. And they go, oh no, we can't pay you that. That's what we pay the 35-year-olds. And so there is that. That definitely comes into it. There's an assumption that they'll have to cut the cake in some way. They'll have to give you a lot of money, which is very, very annoying if you'd be much happier with less. I mean, you just want something to do. And also, when Jess says why should people be forced to work? The economy forces people to work. One has to work to survive. I mean, ironically, when I was Jess's age, I faced ageism the other way around. I was a foreign correspondent. I mean, she looks pretty young to me. I was a foreign correspondent when I was her age, and I was a foreign correspondent in my early 20s. And people couldn't believe how young I was. It was very, very odd. And now it's sort of the other way around. But it's not a new thing. My father faced exactly the same thing when he was my age. He was a headmaster, and he had a very, very interesting thing, actually, when he applied for the job of being headmaster of Millfield when he was 50. And he was uniquely well qualified for it. He was a double international games player. He had got a scholarship to Oxford, a scholarship to Harvard. He had taught at Eton. He'd been a housemaster at Shrewsbury. He went to Rugby. He was absolutely in that world. And he didn't even get an interview, and he couldn't understand it. And then somebody said to him afterwards, well, we had a cut-off date of 49 and you were 50. And my father didn't look, he didn't look 50. He was still playing cricket regularly.
Is that even legal?
Well, I mean, it was legal in 1980 something or other, wasn't it?
Right.
Nowadays, I don't mention my age on my CV, but I did. That absolutely dates me. It's as quaint as doing the school certificate was for my aunts. Which is like salary towers.
Oh, well, it's depressing. It really is a depressing picture that you paint, folks, but we have to leave it there. Charlotte Eager and Jess Gill, thank you for debating that. Let us know at home your thoughts on all of that. Would you try to hide your age from your CV? And have you experienced some age discrimination?
It's funny you saying, is it legal? Of course it's not legal. But when you're in the freelance market at all, it's totally legal because they can just basically say, oh, we don't like him or her because of this basis. What they're really saying is they're too old for what we want, and therefore you're just ruled out of consideration for things. So, and it's difficult. I think once when people aren't defined by what they do. So if you're Jim, the taxi driver, or Mary, the school teacher, whatever, you know, you can always go out and about and you can say, who are you? I'm Mary, I'm a school teacher. Who do you teach? Primary school children, whatever. But then when that's taken away from you, we are defined by what we do. So then you're not Jim, the taxi driver anymore, you're just Jim. And it's difficult, I think, for people, oh, I used to be this, or I used to be...
Yeah, it's part of your identity, your career, isn't it? Let us know what you think about all of that. We're going to return to all of the politics of the day and speak to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who can give us her take on the ousting of Sue Gray, because it seems as though her allies have been jumping to support her, with reports in the Times today that actually there's a bit of a bloke culture around the Prime Minister, and she was threatening them.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Her allies have hit back, saying that basically there's a lads club around the Prime Minister who felt threatened by a powerful woman, and that what's happened with Sue Gray has put off another senior woman who...
Oh.
We've lost Catherine there. Let's see if we can reconnect with her. We were just talking about another senior aide being deterred from applying to be, I think it was Cabinet Secretary for the Prime Minister. Catherine, am I right?
Yes, good morning. Having a few tech issues here. Apologies. Yes, there have been allegations that there's a sort of boys' club around the Prime Minister. And certainly, you know, getting rid of Sue Gray, having this reset moment, bringing in Morgan McSweeney, who masterminded that election victory, a big reset moment. Or is it? Now, Sir Keir Starmer will obviously hope that it is, that they can move on, that they can get a grip. They've had a pretty rocky first 100 days, haven't they? But is this going to fundamentally make all go well within Number 10? Plenty of people saying that it isn't, that it's not all the fault of Sue Gray, that she's being made a scapegoat. A couple of other interesting bits floating around this morning, one of which is that it's being reported that Lord Alli, he of the many, many donations to the Prime Minister and many others, he of the Downing Street pass, shortly after they won that landslide, was helping and working with Sue Gray on the sort of plan for when they came into government and those critical first 100 days. Also talk that the grid, the sort of the timetable of announcements that Number 10 puts in place was dreamt up by Sue Gray and Lord Alli. Now, worth saying, other people have said that's absolutely not the case. That was never her responsibility. That's up to the comms team. What I think we can safely say is there's a lot of people working in Number 10 Downing Street who are very, very unhappy. I spoke to one of them yesterday who was quite diplomatic and said to me, well, you know, it's good if people know who's doing what and who they're responsible to, but time will tell. Sir Keir Starmer desperately needs to get this government back on track because they have got a very, very long time till the next election. But there's a new poll out from More in Common, and that puts Labour's lead over the Conservatives at just 1%.
Goodness me. OK, Catherine, thanks very much indeed.
OK, let's have a look at some of the other news stories you're waking up to on this Tuesday morning. And the Foreign Secretary has defended the decision to hand the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius while facing heckles from MPs. David Lammy said the deal doesn't affect the British sovereignty of overseas territories like the Falklands or Gibraltar, which he said are not up for negotiation.
4 children are in hospital after a school bus crash in Northern Ireland. A major incident was declared yesterday afternoon when a bus carrying 43 pupils overturned in a field in County Down. Police are investigating the cause of the crash.
Water companies will have to pay £157.5 million in penalties after missing key targets Ofwat has said they were told to reduce pollution, leaks and supply interruptions, but have failed to do so. Now, this comes as customer satisfaction continues to fall.
Wagatha Christie has returned to court. This time, Colleen Rooney has claimed her legal fees total more than £1.8 million during a court battle with Rebecca Vardy. And according to reports, Colleen Rooney's bill is said to include dinner, drinks and minibar costs at a 5-star hotel.
Are you a great minibar user?
No, because it's so expensive. I'd sooner get something from the bar in the hotel downstairs than use the mini bar in the room.
Or something from the spa next door.
Yeah. Or the...
Bring it in.
Yeah, that's what you mean, yeah.
No, it's the sweeties that get me in the...
That's your vice.
That's my vice. Yeah. Not the vodkas or gins or anything.
Are they more expensive than in the bar downstairs?
Don't know, no idea. Just happy to have them.
It's when you find the Tony Chocolonis or whatever waiting for you. It's too much to resist.
Too much to resist. Let's see if you could resist the weather today. Honor Criswick with that.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with showers and some longer spells of rain, but if you manage to avoid the showers in the southeast, it will feel warm where you catch the sunshine. So plenty of showers bubbling up across parts of England and Wales. These could be heavy at times with the risk of thunder too. Some longer spells of rain across northern parts of England, across the Scottish borders too. This once again could also be heavy. And some fairly strong winds amongst the showers too, and some stronger winds moving into parts of northern Scotland too. And that's just going to take a bit of a kick off the temperatures too. But as I say, where you catch the sunshine across the southeast, and if you manage to avoid the showers, it will be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. Still into the evening, we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain. Still a chance they could be heavy, perhaps seeing even some sleet and snow fall across the Scottish Highlands, and still those blustery winds as well moving in across parts of Scotland too. Cloudy once again with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland, and elsewhere still plenty of showers continuing into the evening. Still once again could be heavy, still may even hear the odd rumble of thunder. Those showers are going to stick around into the evening, perhaps progressing into longer spells of rain across the southeast, so quite a damp start possible here. And still with those outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland too. Still could be heavy, perhaps still continuing to see that sleet and snow across the Highlands. So generally a cold night, particularly in the north and especially in that brisk wind too. But across the south, generally a mild night on offer for towns and cities. Heading into the middle part of the week, still a fairly unsettled day, still with those longer spells of rain in parts of the northeast. Fair amount of cloud across England and Wales, and still continuing to see those showers bubble up into the afternoon. Once again, a risk of some heavy thundery downpours too, and plenty of strong winds across the country too, which is going to make it feel a little bit chillier. That's it from me. Bye for now.
Woo! A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, a lot of you may well wake up today and think, oh, life's pretty dull, life's pretty awful, life's pretty aimless. But we could change that today. We could change it with a big cash prize. And that cash prize is £36,000, which would just make a massive difference to most people's
absolutely.
lives.
And you've got 3 weeks left before this competition ends. So if you haven't already, make sure you enter. And if you have already, why not enter again? Here are all the details.
On demand. Good luck.
Now, there's an interesting debate coming up next. There's a report from the Police Federation which is saying its members are very nervous, just very uneasy about reporting problems and offences from people who are of an ethnic minority position, because the cops feel they could get in trouble about it over racism. What's the real story after this?
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There's a huge financial and mental strain for parents, but we have this system now where it talks about they bringing a family member to help, but I don't think that's happening a lot of the time. I think people are having to be off work, look after their child, and often, sorry to say, but their school always calls the mum, and then you have this situation where you have nobody to look after your child. People's grandparents don't seem to want to do it so much, and often family members aren't just down the road. So what we have is no village, and I think it's really important when you have a child that you need that village.
Are children getting more sicker than they used to be, or is it just that we take the odd sniffle a bit more seriously now since 2020?
Yes, I do think the odd sniffle can be. I know in my school they say 3 days away, you know, the slightest little thing, and it's like...
If you have a cold?
Yeah, no, please, go in, yeah. And
3 days off if you have a cold for a child, and we wonder why all these parents aren't at work. I think some of these figures about people who could be working and aren't working, they're not necessarily on benefits, but some of them will be people who, during the pandemic, particularly parents, decided to get a different work-life balance. They quite liked being at home, and they realised the children are benefiting from it. Do you think those people are in these statistics, Annette?
Of people staying at home with not working?
Who decided to not go back to work of working age?
Yes, I think a lot of people don't want to go into an office anymore either. They've had that little bit of freedom and they're like, I'm not going in. And I know employers are trying to get them to go in, but they just want to be at home. They want to be near their children if their children are sick, whether that's the mum or the dad. And also, a lot of people don't live near their office or wherever. They don't want to commute. Train fares have gone up, so they say, well, why should I pay? So you have this whole knock-on effect throughout the economy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, we've got a very interesting story coming up now, which features the chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, who we are going to have live on the programme after 9 o'clock, just after 9 o'clock this morning. He has said that white officers worry, they hesitate when dealing with ethnic minorities. Why?
Over fears that they could be investigated on the grounds of racism. This is according to Rick Pryor. He spoke to GB News exclusively, saying that racism of low expectation means that the Met does not criticise bad behaviour.
Now, joining us in the studio, the man who broke this story, our national reporter, Charlie Peters, on this. Pretty worrying, but I'd have to say to you, Charlie, goodness me, if I was a police officer, I think I would be in the same position, the same boat. You'd be worried.
Yes, and I think Rick can say this quite strident language because he has the confidence of knowing that many police officers feel as he does, and that there is a crisis of confidence in policing at the moment, particularly on these potentially controversial altercations and also potentially violent incidents that occur all too often within the capital. Now, he's pointed to a couple of instances that have happened over the last few years. One, last year, there was a bus fare evasion incident in Croydon. The woman who was stopped by a police officer hadn't actually failed to pay for the fare, but he asked to see her Oyster card while supporting revenue protection teams. She refused, and he then arrested her. He was later charged with assault. He was fined. His name was in the press. He felt, as you can imagine, pretty low about it. Now, that conviction was quashed last week. But for 18 months, that officer's been in limbo. And the reason why I spoke to Rick
so
about
if you
this...
were an officer, what you're saying is basically you'd think, oh, she may not have paid. I'm going to check that out. Do you know what? I'm not going to bother. It's not worth the hassle.
Precisely. And you know what? The Mets made that decision for them because as a consequence of that situation and the controversy it generated, the Metropolitan Police no longer support TfL revenue protection teams. They're not even bothering to carry on with that work for fear of those situations occurring again. That's what police officers have told me yesterday. And pointing to that case in particular, Rick Pryor was speaking to me yesterday, and he said that it pointed to all sorts of the concerns that police officers feel about this situation.
Now, we should also say that you, as a member of the public, may have concerns as well, and you may be saying, oi, but, you know, they do discriminate against me and they do act out of line and whatever it is, and that may well be the case, but the overriding feeling from a person charged with enforcing the law or protecting the peace and whatever is that this is going to go against me, the officer.
And I think the Met don't want to agitate that feeling that you've just referred to, that people do often feel as though they are targeted excessively by the police. And that's why Rick Pryor is saying that there is this racism of low expectations. For fear of not upsetting certain communities and minority ethnic people in the city, they're saying, oh, we won't call out bad behaviour, such as that woman who didn't show her Oyster card, who refused to engage politely with the police officer when they were approached. That sort of situation.
Do you think she knew her rights? Do you think she, you know, I did do this and I'm not going to produce this card, and therefore she just knew she was negotiating from a position of strength?
Well, watching the footage, it's uncomfortable because you don't want to see the sort of thing of, you know, a police officer approaching someone as part of their work with the TfL protection teams and it all sort of falling apart in a strange way and escalating very rapidly. But the Met, and I think many officers would contend, well, the Met privately would contend this, but many officers have told me this sort of anonymously in the last couple of days as I've been looking into this, that they certainly feel as though the problem there was not with their officer, but with poor behaviour from a member of the public. And the Met, they say, are shying away from criticising bad behaviour because they feel as though they might be accused of racism.
And I suppose this isn't just a London problem where the Met is a force, but the reason you were speaking to Rick was obviously following on from the press conference by Nigel Farage and members of Reform yesterday, all tied into their concerns around the incident at Manchester Airport on the 23rd of July last year. Now, our audience will be aware there's an investigation active. There could well be a trial in the future, so we have to be careful what we say. But tell us effectively what Reform pledged to do yesterday.
Well, Reform are giving the Home Secretary initial notice that they're preparing a legal private criminal prosecution with regards to that case for the men involved, the alleged assailants in the incident with those several police officers. But they're waiting for the CPS to make a decision. Greater Manchester Police have said they've had a file with the CPS since mid-August. And Reform did criticise Greater Manchester Police for not releasing any footage. What we've seen so far has come from mobile phones and some further fuller leaked CCTV that many say exonerates the officers or perhaps mitigates the circumstances that come later. But the police have said they don't do that. They never do that. And that's, in fact, the norm. They don't release footage during an investigation of this sort.
You're back after 9 o'clock. So is Rick Pryor. He's chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation. You've spoken to him exclusively. We're going to speak to him again live on the programme. Is there anything you want members of the public to do who are watching us this morning?
But do you think Rick's telling the truth? Do you think he's accurately representing police officers? Do you feel as though if you were a police officer, you'd have the full confidence to approach anyone and tackle any crime?
Thank you, Charlie. There's how you do this, how you get in touch via our website. So I just was building up. There it is there. There it is there, gbnews.com /your say. Please do get in touch. Back after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Dumfries and Galloway, the A710 is closed south of Dumfries after an accident. In Cumbria, the A591 is blocked by an accident between the Plumgarth roundabout and A6 at Kendal. On the M1 in South Yorkshire, 2 lanes are closed northbound for emergency repairs at junction 38 at Huddersfield. Queues from junction 36. On the M61 in Greater Manchester, 2 lanes are closed northbound where a lorry caught fire between junctions 3 and 4 from the Kersley Spur to the A6 at Farnworth, causing delays. The M5 in Gloucestershire, the inside lanes closed southbound along with the entry slip road at junction 12, the Quedgley and Hardwick turn after an accident causing delays. On the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 5 and 4 from Southampton to the M3 causing queues, and in Devon the A30 is closed westbound after an accident between Sawton Cross and Lifton Down.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6pm on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9pm. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the sports stories on the back of the papers today involve the two big Manchester teams, United and City. Paul Coyte, tell us more.
Manchester City, who seem to be at war with the Premier League at the moment, they claimed victory in this legal battle. They were the ones that actually took the Premier League to the arbitration over a thing called APT, which is Associated Party Transaction. I could go into all this deep, but you know what? You'll nod off. But APTs are aimed at the value of sponsorship deals with companies linked to clubs' owners. So they were using them, whereas the Premier League was saying you can't actually use that money, it's not allowed. Man City have gone back and then said that, you know, you're restricting us, that it's unlawful. This battle line's drawn. You've got Chelsea, Newcastle and Everton, who were witnesses in this case for City. Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal and Tottenham, Brighton and West Ham were witnesses for the Premier League. The Premier League say they won. Manchester City say they won. They both have their little victories in this, but it's not pretty. And also there's 115 charges still against Manchester City that still have to be resolved as well.
It's sort of around competition laws and whether or not they were loaning out players at a discounted amount because it's part of the same group.
Exactly, that as well as sponsorship. So it's like if you've got a company, if, for example, Etihad are sponsoring then Manchester City because they partly own the club and they're saying it's not really fair. Whereas then Manchester City say, well, yes, it is. Well, it goes on and on.
The owners of Manchester United meet today in London. They met with some supporters yesterday in Manchester. Top of their agenda today, it looks like it's going to be, does Eric Ten Hag continue?
The thing
or
is,
do they replace him?
They say that it's not top of the agenda, but it's, like we said earlier, it's going to be the elephant in the room. That's what you got. Jim Ratcliffe is going to be there, Joel Glazer, Sir Dave Brailsford, all the big boys are there. Omar Barada, who's the CEO, Dan Ashworth, the sporting director, so they're all going to meet. But they're talking about, they do this every month. They met in Barcelona a month ago. This is when they, because of the America's Cup, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is very much involved in. But there's no way they're not going to discuss the future of Eric Ten Hag.
OK, well, if it's not going to be Eric Ten Hag, who's it going to be?
You know what? Your guess is as good as mine. We've got possibly Gareth Southgate. I think Thomas Tuchel. I've got a funny feeling now around Thomas Tuchel.
Well, I said so from the start.
You did.
Yeah.
You did say so from the start. But we'll just have to see. I think maybe he'll get a stay of execution. He's on holiday at the moment. I think it's probably a good idea. I did that once. Go on holiday.
Mid-season.
They can't.
Weird.
They can't fight.
No, it's international break. You see, yeah.
Nobody can catch it. See, that's the thing. We've got an international break. We've got another one in November, which everybody's fed up with. It's too much international football.
But what?
I was going to say about Johan Neyskens. Hear about Johan Neyskens?
Yes, I was about to mention that. I mean, one of the greats, played with Johan Cruyff in that Dutch team that dominated in the World Cup.
That's right, 74. 1978, there's Neyskens there. Look at those sideburns. You know that's about 1974. There's great pictures of them together. Well, there's... that's... No, there's Neyskens there on the left. There's Frank Rijkaard, I think, on the right. But he played at Barcelona as well, played at Ajax with Johan Cruyff. Always love the picture. I think we've done this before. You know, we talked about Adidas and Puma.
Yeah.
The link between, the two brothers. There's famous pictures for the 1974 World Cup final with Johan Cruyff with 2 stripes on his Holland shirt.
Aye.
Neyskens playing alongside him with 3 stripes.
Really?
And the reason being?
What?
Johan Cruyff was sponsored by Puma. So even though it was the national shirt, was an Adidas shirt, he wouldn't wear it.
Money.
Said, I've got to wear my own one.
Let me tell you something. Sir Bobby Charlton, his will was published yesterday, and what is whatever money that he had left after dying. And it was £600,000. And so we're talking about a World Cup winner here, one of the most famous footballers ever in Britain. And I don't know about you, but you would have thought that,
Millions.
Millions you would have been talking about left, but 600,000.
You kind of think that you think of the man, the stature of the man, but during football, never earned anything. Playing for England, never really earned anything.
Yeah.
And then over the years, you think, where would that come from? Great footballers of the past that actually went out and did normal jobs, you see.
Question of sports back on the road.
Although the other one was... What are
you talking about?
That was the original thing.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean? I'm talking about? I'm singing
it's
to
a
you.
magic roundabout or something you're singing.
I thought I recognised mine better than I recognised yours. That's the later thing. Okay, question of sport.
Sue Barker.
They're going on the road. They're going to use...
No.
So anyway, Sue Barker, they're going on the road because they canned it, didn't they? Because it got all rubbish. They had Paddy McGuinness host it. They thought, we're going to revamp it. We're going to make it all... And it just never worked. So when Sue Barker left with Matt Dawson and Phil Tufnell, they're going on the road. So they're going to... And the BBC still said there's a possibility of bringing it back. Sue is still saying, I'd be happy to bring it back. Whether they want Sue... is a different matter. I'd love to see Sue back.
They should have Sue back.
Well, my son had got a job on the new series of Question of Sport. He was absolutely thrilled to bits. Then it was dropped.
No.
So he didn't get there. It didn't happen.
Oh, no. Is it true that you nearly hosted it?
Yeah, I was asked to present Question of Sport, after David Coleman.
Yeah.
And I genuinely looked at it, and I think in the film Magnum Force, Clint Eastwood has a saying, which is... a man's got to know his limitations. And I do think that you've got to know your limitations.
Make my day. You could have made your day.
No, but I thought you're dealing with Coleman, you're dealing with David Vine and whatever.
Yeah.
Absolute masters. I was 26 or so at the time, so I just thought no, and I was glad I did it. A great show to watch. Great show to watch, and Sue's a great host as well.
First captains were...
Or on a Question of Sport.
Who were the first captains?
I should know that. If you showed me pictures, I'd know that.
Give us a clue, yeah.
Go on, give us a clue. Bill Beaumont.
Oh, no, this is a little later on.
Bill Beaumont, Eamonn Hughes and David Coleman there.
Oh, there we go.
David Vine,
David Vine in the middle.
Henry Cooper.
Yes.
And that guy's a rugby player.
No, it's Freddie Truman. It's Freddie Truman.
Oh, Freddie Truman was it, right?
But that was Freddie Truman. He came back in the 70s. It was Cliff Morgan, the rugby player Cliff Morgan, who then on to a big shot at the BBC. Yeah. And our Emery. Splash it all over. You remember Henry Cooper?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that trip down memory lane. We're back with what's in the newspapers right after this.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry. Tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Earlier this week, Olympic swimmer Adam Peaty finally proposed to his girlfriend, because I've been waiting for this, the daughter of Gordon Ramsay, with a gorgeous yellow diamond ring.
Yeah, so the demand for coloured diamonds in the last 10 years has soared by, guess how much, 77% between 2010 and 2019. Joining us now to tell us more about some of the hottest trends in the diamond world is dealer to the stars, Neil Dutson. Good morning, Neil. Morning, Ben. And I've got one of your exemplary examples. Look at this bad boy.
So that's a very rare Muso Colombian emerald. And it's alpine green translucent, so it's a really stunning
See if we get a close-up.
So, yeah, so pretty impressive.
Can I be very crude and ask how much this is worth?
So value is £200,000.
How much, sorry?
£200,000. Now, the reason is its rarity. It's minor oiling. It's very, very, very pretty. The two diamonds on the side are D-colour, flawless diamonds, just to accentuate the setting.
Neil, how did you get into diamonds?
I studied diamonds in Antwerp. So Antwerp used to be the diamond capital of the world, really. Yeah. 85% of the world's diamonds go through Antwerp, or used to. And now Dubai has taken over. And yeah, I just went to a school there. I learnt about diamonds, and I just didn't want to be seen off in the future.
Neil, I'm very concerned I'm going to drop 200 grand's worth of diamonds into my cup of tea, so can I give that back to you?
Absolutely.
But I can hold one if you like.
Oh, well, I've got a lovely one here.
Thank you.
So this is a fancy vivid yellow. It's 8 carats.
This is my dream ring, just so you know, for this hand. This would be amazing. So what would I call this? A yellow?
So that's a natural fancy vivid yellow diamond. Value £300,000. So.
It fits
depends
like
where you're buying it from.
It fits like a glove, Neil. Oh. Maybe it's a sign. It's meant to be mine.
It's definitely a sign, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time to review the papers in the company of Claire Muldoon and Alex Armstrong one last time this programme. And let's start with you, Claire. And this is looking at the ECHR and an example of an Albanian criminal using it to his advantage to avoid deportation. This is on the front of the Telegraph.
Look, under this administration, we've so far had prisoners being released early that have then reoffended to great depths, I have to say. The electronic tags that were supposed to happen didn't happen either. This is a case of an Albanian who wasn't part of the free movement of labour because Albania isn't part of the EU, as it was then. He then came to this country. He committed lots of crimes. He was then deported back to Albania. But he then made his way over illegally to this country to his girlfriend, who was Lithuanian, who had right of leave to remain. Made her she fell pregnant, and under the ECHR ruling, he was allowed to stay. He's a convicted felon, for heaven's sake. And what message is that sending out?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's just off with their heads.
It's really shocking, and I think it plays into the narrative that we need to leave. We need to leave the ECHR. It's no longer fit for purpose. The ECHR should be designed to protect law-abiding citizens. It should be its primary function. Of course, there are some criminals in some grey areas where it should protect. But more often than not, I'm seeing stories again and again that tell me that that this institution is ruling in favour of criminals over law-abiding citizens.
What's the figure today? 745,000 illegal immigrants coming over into this country?
Only up to 2017, bearing in mind. That's a big number.
It's a huge number, and 1 in 100 of us, which should be actually more sensitive in various other parts of the country. They'd be more concentric there than it is. I mean, that's obviously an average over the whole of the country.
There is debate about whether leaving the ECHR would solve these problems. We do have our own human rights laws in this country. We have the Supreme Court. We also have British judges sitting on the European Court of Human Rights, which are part of the fabric of it. So I think it's... And this is what Cammy Badenoch has said, because a lot of the Tory leadership are having this question thrown at them. It's only Robert Jenrick who wants to pull out. She says it's a knee-jerk response to pull out altogether, and it needs to have a grown-up conversation about reforming the ECHR and changing it, but getting rid of it probably wouldn't solve the problem.
Well, look, I'm all up for these institutions improving and reforming and being better as a result of pressure. It would require an enormous amount of European response to do that, and I think that's where the question lies. Is there appetite, with the EU itself needing a ton of reform, is there appetite amongst European politicians to reform the ECHR as well and change a lot of the premise of it? I don't know whether... I think this is the question. Is it, do we want to solve the immigration problem we have now, or are we happy to wait another decade? Because I think that's how long it would take for us to reform the ECHR.
But I suppose, return to the question, would that solve the problem?
Well, that's a good question.
Would our own human rights laws prevent those people being deported? We don't know.
Good question.
Claire, you want to talk about drinking, social drinking, and how it goes down with Generation Z.
This came out, I think this was a story yesterday, but the Star have picked up on it today. Gin and tonics, the headline. Apparently Gen Zers would far rather go to the gym than go to the pub.
Are you a Gen Zer?
No, millennial.
Oh, right, me too. I'm just squeaking in
there, yeah.
Isn't that really sad? I think it's really sad. A lot of them will go, and I know this because my kids are Gen Z, and they will go and they'll work out and they'll do this and they'll do that.
So what age group is Gen Z?
18 to 24, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
Right.
Children.
Yeah.
You should be flattered, though.
I know I am. Well, listen, I've got a lot of younger brothers who are all Gen Zers.
Is this true, then?
So from my experience with them, I don't find it true. Now, I will say that they go to the gym a lot more and they go younger. I think there's this massive trend in them.
They use it as a dating app.
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Because the membership picture comes up when they go into the gym and they'll sit there and they'll either pump their weights or do whatever they pump or pump whatever they pump.
All right, steady on.
And then they will see, like the look of that. Where are you? In the sauna. And then they'll move around the gym
in the sauna.
to find these people, to find the people that they find attractive.
It's a bit creepy.
Well, I'm all for young people getting into the gym. I think this is a good thing. I mean, from my experience, my little brothers, they drink way more than I do, and they go out clubbing a lot more than I ever did.
They'd have far more fun going to the pub.
I hope they do.
They'd have far more fun, interacting with human beings, like ordering a drink and having a merry old time. Not that you need alcohol to do that, though, but come on.
Yeah.
Instead of going to the gym and then going for your oat latte, come on, don't be so Gen
Go to the pub instead and
Exactly.
Claire, should we talk about this book story about how students can't read long books anymore, according to a professor at Oxford University? Oh, dear.
Oxford and Cambridge, if you're privileged enough to study there, you will have an essay a week to do, whereas normal institutions give an essay a month in order for them to do. But what this study has shown from kids at Oxford is that they're not reading long books. And then that's going to happen then. They're going to move to not reading shorter books. And if people don't read, how can they write?
It's not saying people don't read. It's saying people don't read long books.
But what I'm saying is that they will. That's the start of it. Then they won't start. Then they'll stop reading shorter books. And if they don't
there
read
are other
books,
things. But there are other things to read besides books. There's periodicals, there's magazines, there's newspapers and whatever. I don't think this is the sort of doom scenario that you're maybe.
But if it's part of your course to read the text, I mean, my understanding is that in A-level English literature now, you don't have to read the entire book. You just have to read extracts from it.
You read the entire book.
I do English literature A-level.
I bet you, Isabel, did.
I did. I bet you. I tell you, I didn't read any of the entire books.
Well, look.
I think I got an A in it.
There you go. There you go.
Because what it's about understanding them.
Right. So this is a really interesting. I think you've got something there, Eamonn. Is that artificial intelligence? I will bring up the scary word. No, but we should talk about it. And they're coming into the new phones now. They're going to be everywhere. There's buttons you press on that says summarise this article for me. I do it for a lot of the media stuff that I do. But I cheat a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It's great. Bullet points. Bullet points gives me all the correct data that I need to get to.
Your Twitter feed isn't real.
No, of course it's real.
You sit out there Yeah, you pretend that you're cheating.
Listen, that's defamation,
The world
all right?
has changed. How we learn has changed.
It is.
When I was
It is,
17, 18, it was a book called Cole's Notes.
Yes.
And Cole's Notes were the summarisation of the books and whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't read any of the books. So I've got my A-levels thanks to Cole's Notes, which was absolutely brilliant. So it changes today to AI or other ways of doing these things.
But get this, right? I mean, when I was at university, you had to reference still. You had to do your referencing, which means you've got to write the author's name, the date. So I did have to read books, unfortunately. But my little brothers, they just get an app out, scans it, gives them the reference.
Gives them the reference. You're kidding. Because my son's been asked to reference his homework now. He's just about to turn 9.
There you go.
And it starts early, but you can cheat. Oh, dear.
But you're a book reader, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you love fiction, which I sit and go, that does my head
I like both, to be fair. I love a biography. I read quite a few biographies, but I love fiction. I absolutely love fiction. But I think if you're studying at Oxford University, if you're studying English, you should blooming well read the text that you're being set. If you can't hack it, get out.
And if you're going to be a teacher, you must have read it.
Requirement.
You have to have read it.
It's all about hacking the system, guys.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Point then.
Next to be growing meat from blooming labs.
Well, we can. Well, it's actually interesting. There's a story about that, but we can come on to that another time if we get to it.
Alex, there's a town called Poundbury, which I've thought, I'd love to live there. And this is in Dorset. And Prince Charles was behind a lot of the design of it.
Yeah.
But there's trouble.
Trouble in paradise, indeed. So this was meant to be an ideal town built with King Charles's touch, you know, with all the horticulture and everything else that goes with it. And unfortunately, there's images of it with bins overflowing, rats. The local residents say it was rat infested, and supposedly, this is due to a typical bureaucracy, which is a mix-up of recycling bins. And therefore, the local council are refusing to take those mixed-up bins. So there's a bit of a row broken out between the local council and the local people, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because, you know, I understand that people want to recycle, get this all right, but to leave the bins overflowing deliberately, I mean, who's going to go in and clean the bins? The residents aren't going to go and start separating them from these overflowing bins. Someone's got to step in here, and it's all very well for the local council to say it's not my problem, but it is.
I think it's just absolute rubbish. I really do.
Very good.
Seriously, I really do.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, Claire and Alex. Really enjoyed you today. Thank you very much indeed. Time now for an update on the weather situation. Honor Criswick with that.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with showers and some longer spells of rain, but if you manage to avoid the showers in the southeast, it will feel warm where you catch the sunshine. So plenty of showers bubbling up across parts of England and Wales. These could be heavy at times with the risk of thunder too. Some longer spells of rain across northern parts of England, across the Scottish borders too. This once again could also be heavy. And some fairly strong winds amongst the showers too, and some stronger winds moving into parts of northern Scotland too. And that's just going to take a bit of a kick off the temperatures too. But as I say, where you catch the sunshine across the southeast, if you manage to avoid the showers, it will be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. Still into the evening, we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain. Still a chance they could be heavy, perhaps seeing even some sleet and snow fall across the Scottish Highlands, and still those blustery winds as well moving in across parts of Scotland too. Cloudy once again with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland and elsewhere. Still plenty of showers continuing into the evening. Still once again could be heavy. Still may even hear the odd rumble of thunder. Those showers are going to stick around into the evening, perhaps progressing into longer spells of rain across the southeast, so quite a damp start possible here. And still with those outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland too. Still could be heavy, perhaps still continuing to see that sleet and snow across the Highlands. So generally a cold night, particularly in the north and especially in that brisk wind too. But across the south, generally a mild night on offer for towns and cities. Heading into the middle part of the week, still a fairly unsettled day, still with those longer spells of rain in parts of the northeast. Fair amount of cloud across England and Wales, and still continuing to see those showers bubble up into the afternoon. Once again, a risk of some heavy thundery downpours too, and plenty of strong winds across the country too, which is going to make it feel a little bit chillier. That's it from me. Bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Dumfries and Galloway, the A710 is closed south of Dumfries after an accident last night. In Cumbria, the A591 is closed each way between the Plumgarth roundabout and A6 at Kendal after an accident. In West Yorkshire, the A650 is blocked southbound by an accident on Tong Street at East Byerley. The M1 in South Yorkshire, there are 2 lanes closed northbound for emergency repairs at junction 38 at Huddersfield, with queues from junction 36. On the M61 in Greater Manchester, 2 lanes are closed northbound, where a lorry caught fire between junctions 3 and 4 from the Kersley Spur to the A6 at Farnworth, with delays back along the M60 from junction 13 at Worsley. On the M11 in Essex, there are 2 lanes closed southbound just after junction 6 for the M25 after an accident causing queues, and in Devon, the A30 is closed westbound after an accident between Salton Cross and Lifton Down.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You really could. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good morning. Is the number 10 problem bigger than Sue Gray?
Officials warn her departure won't resolve the systemic issues at number 10 as questions grow over the Prime Minister's leadership.
Whitehall sources claim it's a desperate attempt from Starmer to reboot his government after months of scandal.
Elsewhere, the Conservative leadership race prepares to whittle 4 candidates down to 3.
In the States, Kamala Harris has taken to task on immigration failings, America's influence over Israel and the cost of living crisis during a new interview overnight.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
The big talking point this half hour, an exclusive for GB News. White officers hesitate when dealing with ethnic minorities over fears they could be investigated on the grounds of racism. Who's saying this? This is the Metropolitan Police Federation. Your views welcome.
Hello, good morning. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showers and some longer spells of rain, but there will be some sunshine on the cards. So to find out where, stay tuned for all the details.
Tuesday morning, a very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and thanks for your company. This is GB News Breakfast. Now, campaigners have called upon the Chancellor to grant a list of promises over planned changes to council tax ahead of the October budget.
Now, currently, a person can qualify for a 25% discount if they live alone or with someone who has dementia.
But critics fear these discounts that benefit the elderly could be scrapped in the budget.
Well, Anna Riley spoke to a pensioner about what a measure would mean to them.
We'll have a big bite. That's nice, isn't it?
Derek Brown cares for his wife Margaret in their Northallerton home. Margaret can no longer walk and struggles to talk due to dementia.
When she forgets your name and when she looks at you as if, who are you? Thank you, Mary. That's really hard. And the first time it happens, it's like a knife going in you. It really is. The person you've been married to for 15 years doesn't know who you are. And it really, really hurts. But in time, you learn to live with it. You learn to blame the disease.
As one of the 900,000 people with dementia in the UK, Margaret's exempt from paying council tax, and so Derek qualifies for a 25% discount. But he fears the cost should the reduction be scrapped.
We're losing the £300 heating allowance, and the average price, the average value of the council tax discount is just over £500 a year. So the government are talking about taking away £500 from people who've got dementia. How are they going to survive?
Campaigning for those with dementia and their carers, Derek pressed for a change in the law to backdate council tax discounts for those with the disease. Now he's fighting for the allowance to remain.
I think the government are hammering people with dementia again. People with dementia have to have the heating on. They have to be at over 21 degrees to keep the houses warm. They're not mobile, same as everybody else. Margaret's in a bed, in the lounge. So she needs the heating on all the time. Why should I have to cut down on the meals? Why should I have to watch when I'm washing Margaret's clothes? Why should I have to do that in order to satisfy a political objective?
Chancellor Rachel Reeves will set out the budget on October the 30th. She said it will involve difficult decisions on tax, spending and benefits. Anna Riley, GB News.
You know, that is heartbreaking. Both you and I were talking, we've had experience of this in our own families, and who hasn't had experience of dementia in their family circle. But this is what politics is about for me. Politics is about real people and how life affects real people and what you in government can actually do about it. Can you make things better or worse? It's not all ethereal. It's not all foreign issues, whatever's going on in other parts of the world. It's what goes on in your own street, on your own doorstep, in your own homes. And people like that man having to deal with his wife there, heartbreaking, but so common. Not unusual. Not saying that he's a one-off and it doesn't happen. It happens everywhere.
Yeah, but we don't necessarily see it. And I think what's great is that Derek there was highlighting, as Eamonn said, there are so many Dereks up and down the country, whether they're caring for their wife or, you know, loved ones as they're suffering from dementia, with all these worries. This is the last thing they need. And as you've said before, it's a socialist government. These are the people that you'd normally assume that they would be putting the arm around.
Say, you know, what head case sits in government and says, well, what we're going to do is get rid of the fuel benefits for elderly people come the winter. Who actually thought that up? I'd love to see a picture of this person. Seriously. I mean, is it Starmer? Is it Rachel Reid? Is it some 22-year-old advisor in the Treasury or whatever? Who the heck thought this up? Because what a rubbish sort of proposal it is. And that's the human cost. That's the real effect of this sort of thing. Let us know your experiences.
Yeah, and of course, I think the argument that the government have rolled out is there was going to be a run on the bank if they didn't do this, which obviously a lot of people question.
No, but
the
there's other things to come
on that.
Isabel,
well, exactly.
if I went into government, if you put me in the Treasury tomorrow and they said, Eamonn, make me £20 billion worth of cuts, I'd say, fine, yeah. And there's so much crud out there that you could cut straight away. And a lot of it would be in Downing Street, I would say.
Well, let's focus on Downing Street, shall we? Because we understand that Whitehall officials now, obviously allies of Sue Gray, are warning that her departure won't actually fix the systemic issues in Number 10 and are actually alleging that the Prime Minister has a woman problem.
So I think you should explain that.
Well, we can get into it a bit with Christopher Hope in just a moment, but we are just 3 months on from the election.
You don't mean he's involved in anything. You just mean he's got a problem, they think, with female staff. So within
this Times article today, a number of allies of Sue Gray, the former Chief of Staff, who got ousted over the weekend, say that, you know, he surrounded himself by this group of men, male advisors, and in the wake of Rosie Duffield, who was also quit and said that there was a lad problem, it doesn't look good. Let's get the thoughts, shall we, of our political editor, Christopher Hope, in all of this, and also all the rest of the politics of the day. Do you think that this is becoming the narrative now? You know, we've got rid of Sue Gray, we've got Morgan McSweeney at the helm, and now there are questions about whether or not he's got a woman problem, and it's not the first time that's been levelled at him.
That's right. Morning, Eamonn. Morning, Isabel.
Morning.
Here from Downing Street. Yeah, yesterday we asked the PM spokesman that exact question. Does the PM have a woman problem? By which we mean, of course, lots of lads around him and not enough high-level senior female colleagues after Sue Gray was forced out over the weekend. The spokesman said, I wouldn't accept the characteristic at all. You can see from the appointments the PM has made to strengthen his team. So they don't accept it, but it's still being made about this team around the Prime Minister. Now, the Cabinet is gathering now. Steve Reid, the Environment Secretary, has just arrived. Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, for this meeting at 9:30, the new look Cabinet. We expect to see Morgan McSweeney, who's the replacement for Sue Gray as the Chief of Staff. These are names which will mean very little to viewers and listeners. But what this shows is a huge issue and concern about how this government's being run as it approaches its 100-day anniversary next week. A poll out just dropping in the past hour, Eamonn and Isabel, gave the Labour Party a 1-point lead over the Tory Party at 29 points. The Tory Party on 28 points. Reform up 1 point at 19 points. Don't forget, we all thought there'd be an election next month, not back in July. So how politics can change. This huge majority given to this government by voters, all the goodwill of that has been squandered. People like Alistair Campbell blame the delay in having a budget. There's a 16-week delay between the polling day on the 4th of July and budget day on October the 30th. Other governments have had a budget in half that time. We know why it happened, because they want the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, to run their rule over Rachel Reeves' spending plans. But that nervousness about scooping the market has caused a problem in government.
And more allegations in some of the papers. The Mail today talking about the sort of cash for access of Lord Alli. And they need to get a grip. Again, Alistair Campbell saying they really need to get a grip of this narrative because it's not going away.
It's not going away, but we've got to wonder, in the long term, will it have any actual bearing on the future of this government? We are barely 3 months into it. It's a 5-year term of office. You can imagine other things will happen going forward, but it might set the tone for the government, and that's why I think it's a worry for them. It might be hung around their necks for the entire time in government. The choices they've made about removing that £300 winter fuel benefit from 10 million pensioners, that has cut through, and the general feeling of chaos and no real narrative. It strikes me this government was elected to stop the Tories. They've done that on day one, but what's the idea after that?
Let's talk about the Conservative Party leadership contest, whittling down from 4 to 3 today, and the MPs getting their last say in the matters. I see you casting an eye there on ministers arriving for Cabinet this morning and for Morgan McSweeney.
Yes, more arriving to my right here, Isabel.
Who have you got there?
I think that's it's Attorney General, I believe, from the back. So we've seen Shabana Mahmood as they're arriving. The meeting starts here at 9:30, so all the photographers to my right are lining up to photograph them as they arrive. Of course, there have been reports about a possible cabinet reshuffle organised by Morgan McSweeney. We think that's been knocked down overnight, but there were some reports in the Times newspaper over the weekend, and that means they're all on their best behaviour and want to impress their Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Morning, Lou Haig. Will HS2 go to Euston?
Oh.
Does your government have a lads problem? That's Louise Haig, of course. She's the Transport Secretary. Now, there's reports today that they want HS2 to go from Old Oak Common to Euston. Louise Haig hasn't denied that this morning. She said that Euston was always planned to be part of the picture for where HS2 ends up, and we're hoping to make an announcement on that very soon. So it's a real indication there that HS2, this line going to Birmingham, might be continued finally to Euston by this Labour government. But you asked about the Tory party, forgive me for that diversion there. Yeah, they go down from 4 candidates to 3 today. We're expecting probably Tom Tugendhat to get knocked out, although he had support of Mandy Street, the former mayor of Birmingham, yesterday. Up for grabs are 16 votes for Mel Stride, a moderate Tory MP. Where will they land? As things stand, Robert Jerring's head on 33 MPs, Kemi Badenoch on 28 MPs, and James Cleverly and Tom Tugendhat on 21 MPs. 119 MPs vote, 2 aren't. One of them includes Richard Fuller, the chairman. There's hustings at 11 a.m. Results live on GB News at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon.
Good stuff. Thank you very much indeed.
That's interesting to hear that HS2 may, in fact, end up going to Euston. Being there. That would be
so many more questions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Here's other good news. The Great British Giveaway, which is our big competition, and 3 weeks left for you to get involved.
Yeah, £36,000 up for grabs. Here's how it could be yours.
On demand. Good luck.
Still to come, the chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation has said that white officers hesitate when dealing with ethnic minority. Are you an ethnic minority? Do you agree with this? Do you disagree? Do you understand why? We're going to be talking to him right after this break.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
True crime is everywhere.
Yep, and next weekend, CrimeCon UK takes place in London. And joining us now to tell us more about that event and the true crime phenomena is former detective Stephen. How did you pronounce your surname? Keogh. Sorry, Stephen.
That's all right.
I should have checked you before.
No worries.
And Nancy, and again, Nancy, what's your surname?
Bourne.
Thank you. I'm showing my ignorance there, but thank you both for joining us. So, Stephen, you're a former top cop. Hope you don't mind me describing you as that. At CrimeCon and other events like that, do you get into sort of the semantics of the investigations and, you know, how... For example, how I was watching something the other night where somebody was unfortunately murdered, but you saw the crime scene investigators trying to work out from which side the person was attacked from. Did the knife come from the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Is it all that kind of stuff?
So for me, everything I've done since I've left the police is about sharing that knowledge of investigations, because if you watch TV, they get it wrong a lot. So what we try and do, I'm not the only police officer there, there's experts, so forensic scientists, psychologists, all from that investigative world, just trying to get across, well, actually, this is how it's really done. This is what we do, not what you're going to see on telly. And I think that's really important. So for me personally, coming along to CrimeCon, I just look at the list of people that are there, honestly, and I'm proud to be associated with them. There are some fascinating people there. People who've really fought for justice for their children. People who are campaigning for victims, for survivors. So it's an event that when you look at the name, you might think, oh, they're just going to sit there talking about serial killers and what they got up to. Couldn't be further than the truth. It's really about what goes on, how it impacts the victims, how the investigations are carried out. It's educational as much as anything.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation has said that white officers hesitate when they deal with ethnic minorities because they fear they could be investigated for racism.
Well, Rick Pryor spoke to GB News saying that racism of low expectation means that the Met does not criticise bad behaviour.
Well, the man who came up with this story, our national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, tell us more.
Well, Rick Pryor has made quite a striking intervention here in reaction to a couple of high-profile cases where police officers have been exonerated following investigations that the Met Police Federation has described as malicious and vexatious and a political witch hunt. And all of these cases that he's referring to involve white police officers stopping and interacting with members of the public who come from minority ethnic backgrounds. And he's saying that many officers now fear as though, they won't continue to get into those altercations and confrontations for fear of similar investigations wrecking their careers, wrecking their mortgages, their lives, their marriages,
well,
and all the rest
let's
of it.
hear from the man himself, Chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, Rick Pryor. Rick, good morning to you. Has Charlie represented your case correctly there?
Good morning. Yes, he has. There's a striking crisis of confidence at the moment within policing in general, and certainly within the Metropolitan Police, whereby officers are withdrawing from any kind of proactive policing for fear of falling foul of the IOPC, the Independent Office of Police Conduct, or a vexatious or malicious complaint. There seems to be an assumption of racism right from the off, particularly when it's a white police officer and a member of the public from a minority ethnic community. And it almost seems as if the onus is then on the police officer to prove that the interaction wasn't racist. And we've found that in the two recent cases that have been highly publicised, both in the Croydon bus incident and also the Dos Santos and Bianca Williams stop and search incident.
Can I read the response to you of the president of the National Black Police Association, who was quite shocked by what you've been saying? He said there have been many seminal reports into the racism that the black community suffer at the hands of Met officers in London over many years. He says it's ridiculous that Rick Pryor and others would try to use a small number of high-profile cases to delegitimise the evidence found in many reports, most recently from Baroness Casey, and she famously found the Metropolitan Police institutionally racist, misogynistic and homophobic.
But you know what? I think that's missing the point. I don't think that's what the fellow's talking about. Now, I absolutely agree. I think if you are a black person or whatever, you may well be worried. But also as an officer, Charlie, that there is a fear that the cards are stacked against you. Is that really what we're talking about?
Well, I think that is the perspective that I've heard, certainly from other police officers that I've spoken to on this case. And it comes on the back of a discussion that Reform UK, that political party, launched yesterday in a press conference about the Manchester airport incident. So I phoned Rick on the back of that, hoping to speak to him about concerns police officers are having about investigations by the Office for Police Conduct. And obviously this isn't his patch, he's a Metropolitan Police officer, but this is a widespread concern across the country where officers now feel as though they are being tarnished with this perspective of being institutionally racist. And I think another interesting point that we heard from Rick in the interview yesterday that I'd like to bring up now was that, Rick, you're also very critical of Met's leadership. You say that they are failing to call out bad behaviour from some members of the public. And I think you told me that this is the racism of low expectations. They're scared to call out bad behaviour.
Yes, that is what I termed it. When the behaviour of certain individuals it clearly falls below that of which society expects, I think it's incumbent on police leaders to support their officers who are charged with dealing with these type of incidents to come out and call out that behaviour. And I mean, the example of which I relate this to was the recent Croydon bus incident matter, where it was clear that the lady in question behaved poorly. It's a quite reasonable expectation of society that if you travel on transport, London transport, on the buses, the trains, you know that if you are asked to produce a valid ticket for travel, you show that ticket. Had that happened in this case, there would have been no incident. And so it was the behaviour of the lady in question that instigated the whole matter. And that type of behaviour...
We're out of time, Rick, but thank you very much for putting your case, and we put it out to our audience in general there, Charlie. If you were a white police officer, would you worry about being able to carry out your job or not? We want to know your view on this. What is the perception? What is the reality? Charlie Peters, Rick Pryor, thank you both very much indeed.
Some big breaking news just in, and the prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, Christian Bruckner, has just in the last few moments been found not guilty on separate sex crime charges, meaning he could be released from prison as early as next year. He was named as the prime suspect in the 2007 disappearance of Madeleine in June. June 2020 by German police, but since then, no charges have been brought. So that's the breaking news that Christian B., the suspect, could be released in the new year.
Quick word from Andrew and Bev as to what you guys are doing today.
Well, do we finally know why Lord Alli has given all this money? This book that's coming out suggesting that he was involved in preparation for government, going to meetings with civil servants, drew up the 100-day grid for the first 100 days. That went well, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because what did they achieve in the first 100 days? Not much.
We'll be looking at that breaking news as well that you've just said there about with the Madeleine McCann suspect. And also we're going to be talking about this Albanian criminal who was deported and then come back and then got somebody pregnant. You probably covered this, and therefore there can't be...
Human rights. Human rights.
And also...
And what age is it too old to get a job?
Well, people who say the world has many isms, very many things, ageist is right up there.
Yeah, so there's a report saying if people are now lying on their application forms if they've reached the great old age of 57. So that rules me out.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. We'll be back in the morning to do it all again. Here's your weather forecast.
Thank you.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with showers and some longer spells of rain, but if you manage to avoid the showers in the southeast, it will feel warm where you catch the sunshine. So plenty of showers bubbling up across parts of England and Wales. These could be heavy at times with the risk of thunder too. Some longer spells of rain across northern parts of England, across the Scottish borders too. This once again could also be heavy, and some fairly strong winds amongst the showers too, and some stronger winds moving into parts of northern Scotland too, and that's just going to take a bit of a kick off the temperatures too. But as I say, where you catch the sunshine across the southeast, if you manage to avoid the showers, it will be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. Still into the evening, we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain. Still a chance they could be heavy, perhaps seeing even some sleet and snow fall across the Scottish Highlands, and still those blustery winds as well moving in across parts of Scotland too. Cloudy once again with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland, and elsewhere still plenty of showers continuing into the evening. Still once again could be heavy, still may even hear the odd rumble of thunder. Those showers are going to stick around into the evening, perhaps progressing into longer spells of rain across the southeast, so quite a damp start possible here. And still with those outbreaks of rain across parts of Scotland too. Still could be heavy, perhaps still continuing to see that sleet and snow across the Highlands. So generally a cold night, particularly in the north and especially in that brisk wind too. But across the south, generally a mild night on offer for towns and cities. Heading into the middle part of the week, still a fairly unsettled day, still with those longer spells of rain in parts of the northeast. Fair amount of cloud across England and Wales, and still continuing to see those showers bubble up into the afternoon. Once again, a risk of some heavy thundery downpours too, and plenty of strong winds across the country too, which is going to make it feel a little bit chillier. That's it from me. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Dumfries and Galloway, the A710 is closed south of Dumfries after an accident last night. In Cumbria, the A591 is closed each way between the Plumgarth roundabout and A6 at Kendal after an accident. On the M1 in South Yorkshire, 2 lanes are closed northbound for emergency repairs at junction 38 at Huddersfield, with queues from junction 36 at Barnsley. The M62 in Cheshire is partly blocked eastbound between junctions 11 and 12 from Birchwood to the Eccles interchange, causing queues. On the M5 in the West Midlands, there are northbound queues after traffic was stopped because of an accident between junctions 3 and 2 from Hales Owen to Albury. On the M11 in Essex, it's down to a single lane southbound after an accident between junctions 6 and 5 from the M25 to Loughton, causing 2 miles of queues. And in Devon, the A30 is closed westbound from Sawton Cross to Lifton Down after an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Italian wine in Britain is worth a whopping £891 million and can be described as a Prosecco phenomenon, apparently. So joining us now to tell us more about why these Italian bubbles are so popular is Ed Smith, the founder of The Emissary, a British-based Prosecco brand. Good morning, Ed.
Morning, guys.
Thank you for coming in, and you've done just as we asked. You come laden with booze and bottles and glasses.
Exactly.
So the definition of Prosecco, Tatiana, you were saying earlier, is sparkling wine that's been made in certain areas of Italy. Which areas?
Exactly. So the Prosecco region is northeast Italy. It's about sort of an hour north of Venice, foothills of Dolomite Mountains. Very, very beautiful part of Italy. Veneto, exactly. Well done.
Show off.
Well, I'm half Italian, so...
well, there we go. OK, you should be teaching me.
No, that's it.
So, yeah, so like Champagne, that has to come from the Champagne region in France. Prosecco has to come from the Prosecco region in Italy.